So as we're getting ready to do the show, we're doing our research, of course, and there's two big stories that we're trying to figure out which one makes the most sense to start the show with. It's called the lead story. And it's meant to rope in the viewers so we can have this bigger conversation. And the first is that there's a poll that came out showing most Americans support the boycott against Anheuser-Busch. That is to say, they're not just upset over what Bud Light did. They're actually supporting taking political action against this company. That's most people. If most people are for the boycott, you have to imagine even more people are actually upset. I'd be willing to bet there's a large group of people who are like, yeah, it was really dumb what they did, but I don't care about a boycott, right? The next story is about Ralph Yarl. It's a teenager who reportedly went to the wrong house and then was shot for it. The media is now drumming this up into this big Black Lives Matter episode where they said that he went to the house, rang the doorbell, and this racist old man just shot him. But in reality, there's a bunch of lies that have come out, and we're going to break those down. One, the Washington Post had to issue a correction because they claimed the teenager was dead, and he's not. He's actually recovering. But then something else happened. As we're getting ready to do the show, Matt Walsh got hacked. Presumably, unless he's just decided to go off and start insulting, I don't know, Ben Shapiro and Joe Rogan, which I really doubt. But the reason I think I decided we should start off with this Matt Walsh getting hacked is, for one, it just happened. It's breaking right now. It's the presumption that he was hacked. We don't know for sure. I reached out to Daily Wire crew and said, hey, yo, check this out. You might want to get on top of this. But it leads directly into the Anheuser-Busch boycott story. The backlash against those who are standing up against gender ideology is pronounced. And so we will talk about that. But my friends, before we get started, head over to castbrew.com. and buy some of our delicious Cast Brew coffee. We are sponsoring ourselves, everybody. If you go to castbrew.com, you can pick up your Rise with Roberto Jr. breakfast blend. They come in ground or whole bean options. And I got good news. So let me say, these are pre-orders. Production has begun, and it is expected to ship by May 5th. But it's entirely possible. I don't know for sure. It could actually come earlier. We got some good news that they may have been able to get things done a little bit earlier, but I can't make those guarantees. I'm just letting you know. So it is your guaranteed date is May 5th for shipping, which means it'll take however long to get to you from then, depending on where you're at. But support our new venture, castbrewcoffee.com. Click the link in the description below. And also head over to timcast.com, click that join us button, become a member to get access to the members only after show, which will be live tonight at 10 p.m. And we'll even be taking your phone calls. If you become a member for at least 6 months or the $25 level, you can submit questions and then be chosen to call into the show and speak with us and our guest. So don't forget to also smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about all of this and a whole lot more is Joel Pollak.
Good evening.
Who are
Good
you?
To be here. Senior editor at large at Breitbart News and a writer and a lover of good times.
Right on. We like Breitbart.
Yep.
We were talking before the show about the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street. I think that'll come up for sure. It's been, 11 and a half years since Occupy. And it's interesting to see the evolution of where we are in the culture war and just how crazy it's gotten, I guess. But thanks for coming, man. Should be interesting. Talk about all that and more.
It's going to be great. It's been an amazing day, and the Harpers Ferry area is incredible. And I spent the day in Harpers Ferry, which I hadn't visited before, and the layers of history there are just incredible. The Revolutionary War history, George Washington set it up as the second armory for the United States. And then, of course, we learned in school about the raid on Harpers Ferry, but I actually learned from my 5th grade daughter this year that Lewis and Clark started their expedition from Harpers Ferry. Then you've got Story College over there, which is, I believe, the first black college in the United States.
Wow.
Storer College, and the Catholic Church there that dominates the skyline is still in operation. It was built largely for the Irish Catholic rail workers who worked on the railroad. So all these different intersecting layers of American history in one place, and a fantastically beautiful location right there at the confluence of the rivers.
It's the confluence of the rivers. That's
right.
why.
Did you see
it's a strategic location for a variety of reasons.
The billboard that's carved into the mountain? Before they had billboards, they actually carved
there's a giant ad in the mountain at Harpers Ferry. It's cool. And the John Brown raid headquarters just down the street. You can actually go drive down there and then look at all the signs, walk up to the building and everything. It's pretty crazy.
So what's interesting, because we're going to talk about Occupy Wall Street later, is that when Occupy hit, it was a phenomenon. it attracted a lot of media attention, a lot of debate. But that root of radical protest, and in John Brown's case, actual military action, but that root of radicalism is actually pretty deep in American history. It's not necessarily new or imported. The raid on Harper's Ferry was very much a homegrown American thing.
Let's save it and get into that later on in the show. Yeah, thanks for joining us. We got Phil Labonte hanging out.
How you doing, Phil Labonte, lead singer of All That Remains, anti-communist and counter-revolutionary.
I'm Ian Crossland. Happy to be back, everybody. What a week last week. But let's stick to tonight. I want to talk more about this Harper's Ferry stuff, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is nuts.
Then we got Serge pressing the buttons.
What's up, guys? Ready to go when you are, Tim?
Ladies and gentlemen, your breaking news. This happened just a few minutes ago. It appears that Matt Walsh has been hacked on Twitter. And we're sitting here, we're trying to figure out what the big story of the day is. You've got Anheuser-Busch is getting tremendous support from the American public. You've got this story about this teenager who was shot. And then sure enough, I think 4 minutes to go or whatever, Phil Labonte, he's like, Matt Walsh just tweeted that my pronouns are that and N-word.
There's an N-word. Yeah.
And then he says, he calls Joe Rogan a pedo. He says he can confirm that Andrew Tate kidnapped and raped some girls.
It looks like someone might have actually stolen his phone because they just put up a picture that has someone took a picture of what looks like it might be his phone where people are texting him. It looks like there's a Google authentication code in there, Microsoft account security code, Twitter authentication code. So
yeah, I don't want to show that.
Yeah,
like
well,
we got some silly tweets where he's like, he said, Ben Shapiro, you know what you did, and calls him gay. You know, but I don't want to pull up any of Matt Walsh's private information. But ladies and gentlemen, I am a privileged individual in that I have the phone numbers of people at the Daily Wire. And as soon as it happened, I'm sorry, I ruined the fun of whoever these people are. And I immediately called them. I was like, guys, get on this. I'm assuming they were. You know, it's the hardest thing because you never want to just be that random nosy. Like I don't work at the Daily Wire or anything like that. For all I know, I call them and they're like, yes, we know, we're on it. Like, okay, bye. And you're like, sorry to waste your time, guys. But I think we caught it right when it happened. And, oh, geez, wait. What's a Matt Walsh blog? I'm pulling up Matt Walsh's Twitter account on a separate screen because I don't want to show any of his private information.
Yeah, he's got a tweet there. My Twitter isn't hacked. This is just the real me coming out. And it's a picture of that phone. You said you should not lend your phone to anybody in case anybody out there doesn't.
It's crazy to think how much is centralized in these phones now.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, but there's no way this is a prank. This has to be a hack. So I'm looking at it right now. I'm not going to show it on the show. I can't because it says someone texted Matt and it says your Twitter has been hacked.
Right.
But the number isn't saved, which means they likely cloned his SIM card.
I was just going to say it's like
a SIM clone.
It might be not the actual phone.
Let me see if I know whose number this is.
On top of that, if you look underneath there, you see like the Google verification code, Twitter authentication code. So they probably went through and reset it to that phone in order to remake the account.
So you can do that with the original phone and then move it to another phone, which is probably what they did. And it's happened to me before when people have said, "Hey, I am out of battery. Do you mind if I just use your phone to make a phone call?" And increasingly, I've just had to say,
it's also on the East Coast. Matt Walsh is. Matt Walsh is either in L.A. or he's in Nashville. I thought.
Good call.
Where he is.
So, it's our time zone.
This is our time zone.
So okay. So I'll stress this. What likely happened is, oh man, I almost don't want to describe how to do it because I don't want to spread that information.
Yeah, don't. Not worth it.
But simply put, it is very easy to clone someone's SIM card. And once you do, you can put it into any phone. And then when you log into their account, you'll get all of their passwords. You'll get all of their. You get everything. You get two-factor and all that stuff. So I don't know what else. Phil, you said there's something else besides this image.
In the image, the time is East Coast time because it was posted. The picture was posted 6 minutes ago. Yep. In the image, it says 8 p.m. 8:01 is when the image was taken of the phone.
8:10 here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the reason there's that reason. The reason why I think this is legit a hack is that one, the phone number that messaged this phone and said your Twitter has been hacked. There's no name. If it was actually Matt Walsh, the name would be saved, which implies a SIM clone. But then also it shows security codes for a bunch of different accounts.
His
and
Google account.
Yeah, right. That's like leaking very serious access and information.
And the Twitter account, which tells you they've probably changed the password right at that time, 7:22 p.m.
Right.
Eastern. So they changed the password. Twitter sent the authentication code, and now they're into his Google. They're into Microsoft, and once you're into that stuff,
It's kind of game over.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. It's also, man. Where's Elon Musk?
Yeah, that's what I was
Elon.
thinking.
Yo.
Get on the horn, baby.
Well, I mean, if they did get if they actually have the hardware, or like it's probably like you said, a clone, because of the times. That's what I believe, because of the time zone stuff. There's not much that anyone in particular can do. He's gonna have to do the running around of closing all of his accounts and handling all that stuff individually on a laptop or whatever. He's gonna have to call all of his banking stuff. It's gonna be a huge headache. Good luck.
That's so weird. Why would they post this photo if they actually hacked it? That's like when you said they posted the picture of a phone. I'm like, why would someone give up? Like they're incriminating themselves. They're making it much easier to find out who did this.
Well, Kellen just messaged me that there's a bio and tweet references some rapper named, like, I don't want to say the name of it, but according to him, it says that the bio and tweet references some rapper. I don't even want to say the name. I don't want to give him any,
and then it links to the Spotify for that rapper.
Right.
Really?
Right. It says on the thing you can see Sassy Shooters.
Total hack job.
I'm clicking no links. I'm not falling for that.
I imagine that it wouldn't actually be the person that did because this is politically motivated. It's Matt Walsh, obviously, and so they just probably got some random dude's rapper that's got a mixtape or whatever or something like that. But I don't imagine that the actual rapper got a hold of his thing and is like, yo, I'm going to get Matt Walsh's information so that way I can actually promo my mixtape. I just feel like it's more about, getting at Matt Walsh because he's Matt Walsh.
But the promo's very telling. And they splattered their promo multiple times on the Twitter page already.
I mean, good for them.
I don't know about that. That like frames somebody, you know what I mean?
Well, that's a good point.
I mean, maybe,
How do you protect your SIM card? Oh, sorry to interrupt. Is this indicative that his phone was out of his hands when it was taken?
No.
Or is this done digitally?
Nope.
No,
That's
Nope.
crazy.
I don't want to describe how easy it is to do.
Man, that's
how
nuts.
if you have
I will say this. You don't need the device. You don't need any physical object. You only need a phone number.
That is
Yeah,
so
exactly.
crazy, man.
That's it.
This world where we think we have any kind of security, it's all an illusion.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's all an illusion. There is no security anymore. The idea of security is always what can you air gap? If you don't have an air gap, then you do not. That means it has to be only hardware. It has to have no Wi-Fi ability, plug in only, and you never plug it into like some kind of internet that you don't know. I mean, it's super hard to be.
Here's the other thing to consider. All of Matt Walsh's direct messages have just been exfiltrated.
Oh.
Yeah. So all that stuff I said to Matt, if you guys end up reading it, it was totally a joke.
It was Chris.
No, I was like I was thinking that the only thing I've ever said was like good movie guy or something like that.
Matt Walsh is his direct messages and stuff. They're probably one step more edgy than Mitt Romney.
I don't know. I didn't know about that.
He's like, I mean, he probably gets fired up and says some bad things about trans people, but other than that, which the trans people are already completely convinced that he's going to say the most terrible things that you could possibly say about them from Matt Walsh. So
I'm like, do I need to try and should I do something? I don't know. Part of me is kind of like just mind my own business, stay out of it. I felt bad enough actually calling the Daily Wire guys and being like, hey, do you guys know this? Because I feel like it's intrusive or whatever.
The right move.
I mean, it was the right.
But like, I could also reach out to people at Twitter and be like, hey, but I'm like, is it my place?
I don't imagine that there's a whole, like I said, I don't imagine that there's a whole lot that can be done. Like the real damage is the stuff that they've got behind the scenes. Never mind his Twitter account. Sure, it exposes stuff, but
and the other thing to consider this. Whoever did this, they probably did a lot more before revealing that they did it.
If they're smart, yeah.
Yeah. Can't believe they posted this image of the phone though. I mean, that just gives so much away. 7:22 p.m. is when they broke in.
Hacked is already trending with 40,000 tweets about it.
Wow, man. Yo, this is crazy. What's going on? But this is so this just happened, and I think this is an element of, look, we saw Riley Gaines try to give a speech, and they threatened her life. They chase her into a room. She gets locked in. What was it, like 3 hours? She's locked in as people are screaming and demanding money.
Yeah.
This is just another component of this. Look, people get hacked all the time. I don't want to act like, what's happening to Matt Walsh is like the first time anyone's ever been hacked or whatever. But you got to recognize, I mean, for us here, we've been swatted. We were swatted 15 times in a year.
Yeah.
This is the stuff that comes with the territory.
It's like you said, 5th generational warfare. This is part of it. It's not an actual, it's not combat, but it's definitely a part of the culture war. It's ridiculous to think that it wasn't, it's Matt Walsh. He's like,
well, I suppose we'll just keep this one on the back burner to see if there's any updates and developments on what's going on. But for the time being, it just looked like that's the last tweet 12 minutes ago saying I wasn't hacked. Here's a picture of my phone. That's so weird. That's crazy. Yeah, man. Posting other security codes and stuff like that. I guess we'll see. But let's we'll jump into the next story, and we'll come back to this one if more developments come in. This is what it's all about right here. Take a look at this story from the Daily Mail. Bud Light boycott. I'll drink to that. Poll finds most Americans back Anheuser-Busch snub over its tie-up with Dylan Mulvaney and say corporations give transgender rights too much attention. Take a look at this. Do you support or oppose the boycott of Anheuser-Busch? 37% strongly support. 17% somewhat support. Now, here's the best part. You then have the not sure segment of people is the smallest. You've got 18% strongly opposing it, 12% somewhat opposing it. So you're looking at the majority of people are saying outright, we are in favor of this boycott. And that says a lot.
Yep.
How many people
It was a survey of 1,000 people, 1,000 adults from Rasmussen. And it found that 54% of people supported it. So Rasmussen actually tends to be decently accurate. I would say surprisingly not the right word. In this regard, we take a look at like a lot of the election data, and Rasmussen is fairly close in terms of getting the actual results right. So I would agree with this. And just real quick to shout out Jesse Kelly. When he said the first time his neighbors ever asked him about politics was because of Bud Light. So this absolutely lines up.
Can I just point out one flaw in the poll, and this is not a knock on Rasmussen, but don't you have to ask beer drinkers? Because this is asking adults. It's 1,000 adults. And that's the problem we always have with these political polls that come out when they try to push people one way or another. They say, we polled 1,000 adults about Trump. Well, adults aren't registered voters, and registered voters aren't likely voters. And
it's not the best sampling.
It's not the best sampling.
But I disagree. I don't drink, but I'm a beer buyer. We typically would have beer stocked here. We haven't done a little bit, but we would go out to different breweries in the area and we'd pick up cases of beer because we have guests and we have people, humans like beer, So I think it's fine, just because. And think of it this way too. Let's say, I don't know what percentage of people don't drink beer at all, right? They're going to go out with their friends still, and they're going to be like, "Hey, don't buy that." They're going to support the boycott.
Mm-hmm. Well, some of us don't drink light beer at all.
I tend to not take polls too seriously unless they're like huge, but like 1,000 people, I'm just kind of like, eh. And you're right. Maybe none of them drink or ever did and ever will. So like, I don't know. And I want to not make the mistake of wanting to believe a poll that I like just because it's an outcome that I like.
Well, here's the problem with the boycott that we found at Breitbart from day one. You're not going to drink Bud Light. Oh, well, let's look at these other brands. Oh, they're all also owned by Anheuser-Busch. So
InBev,
it's very, very hard to find an alternative if you like that. Now, there are alternatives out there, but I think it brought home to people how few big companies are actually in this market. And that, in turn, brought home the fact that the political agenda that companies are often indulging in has become so universal because there are so many industries where you have this amount of concentrated commercial power that they can change the culture so easily with one ad campaign. Now, I don't know if they succeeded in this one. There's a backlash, but from their perspective, it might actually be a successful marketing campaign because they've raised brand awareness to new heights. People are talking about their beer.
I don't think so. Maybe. But unless they come out with an apology, then it's just very, very negative. I mean, you got Ron DeSantis coming out today. I think it was today. And he said, I'm not going to buy their beer anymore. Why would I? Like, It's just cascading. And normally these stories, they don't last 3 weeks.
Can we get him to ban that beer at Disney World? Then we can put this all in one story.
That's what does it, not the prison. You hear him mention like maybe they need a new prison next to, what is it called? Something Creek? Oh, Reedy Creek or whatever.
Really?
I said they should call the prison the Epcot Correctional Center.
That's great. I initially thought that this was going to be received as an attack on Dylan, and so I was kind of against the idea of boycotting, because I was like, people are going to take it as an attack on Dylan. They're going to take it as the right being mean spirited, etc. And I was like, this isn't going to go well. It's going to look bad. And I'm happy to say that it looks like I'm wrong. I think that the general population doesn't feel like they're bullying Dylan. I think they feel like the problem is with Bud, and I think that that's showing in the polls and stuff.
For me, I think my conscience is cleared in that we talk about it as if the beer company got a guy that targets children as his main audience to sponsor beer, which I don't care if you're gay or trans or whatever your sexuality or gender or whatever. I really don't if you're a good person. It's if things like this misalignment where little kids are getting fed beer ads, or their favorite influencer is selling beer and they see them drinking it in the tub and they're like 9, like that's where I think they made a huge mistake. And I do not fault Dylan, although for that aspect of it, although I don't like that he, without maybe even realizing it, has kids as his little audience and is selling beer. But I mean, he's in a meteoric rise state right now, and probably doesn't have a lot of advisors around him that he can trust.
Ali London has done some digging and found various posts from Dylan Mulvaney lying. And so the whole thing, in my opinion, is a bit, and more evidence backs it up. Apparently there was an old post. Dylan Mulvaney has deleted some of these old posts. And I think the reason is Dylan tried made a post about being trans and having trouble getting acting work, but then later made a coming out as trans. Also said on the Rosie O'Donnell podcast, whatever show that is, that they just came out publicly for the first time and just started taking hormones in this one video. And then Ali was like, but if you go back, you can see that Dylan Mulvaney in the podcast, I think Dylan Mulvaney says they were taking estrogen and other pills. But then on TikTok, there's a video where Dylan claims they just started. What I've actually heard from some transgender individuals, they don't believe that Dylan's actually taking any estrogen at all. Based on, Dylan Mulvaney's body and appearance, they think it's not true.
He's too bony.
I don't know about what their reasoning is, but the thing I pointed out the other day is that someone with body dysmorphia, gender dysphoria, or anorexia or whatever, is not going to make a video to 10 million people pointing to the thing that triggers their dysphoria or dysmorphia, like Dylan Mulvaney does.
Yeah, he's so lighthearted and joyful about that he's a woman.
No.
He's a woman. Like,
that he's a man. That he's a man. So my point is this.
He's like, look, I'm a girl.
No.
You'd be like,
what? That's not what I'm saying. When Dylan Mulvaney made the video pointing to his dick and said, women have bulges, look at it. People with dysphoria don't do that because it gives them dread and anxiety. That's kind of the point. So this is what I was told by a trans woman. She said that Dylan Mulvaney doing that immediately revealed that this person is not trans, because that is like the antithesis of why someone would consider getting surgery to remove that body part. The idea that someone would be driven mentally to the point where they want to amputate their genitals, and then to have someone like Dylan Mulvaney point to it on camera to 10 million people, that's the antithesis of being trans. That's what was told to me. I'm not trans. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm just saying, I don't think it makes sense. And so ultimately what it comes down to is I hate talking about the individual, but this is a bigger story in how the algorithm is ruining the minds of children. And it's like you add on all the creepy nonsense they're jamming down children's throats. Young girls getting Tourette syndrome, young girls getting weird surgeries and lip fillers, and now you want them getting drunk? Man, they are really trying to hurt kids.
And I think the real issue here for conservatives is the fact that all this is about kids. And that's obscured by the left deliberately. And by the White House.
Extremely deliberately.
Yeah, no, it's just, I was watching the White House press briefing a day or two ago, and they were talking about how the Republican governors in the red states are passing all these anti-LGBT laws, 400 laws or something like that. And they lump in the LGB with the T, and they make the T all about transgenderism as opposed to kids and having kids exposed to certain things. I think it's depressing actually to watch all this rhetoric get thrown around because none of it gives any credit to conservatives for just caring about kids, rightly or wrongly. I mean, if you agree or disagree or whatever, but you have to at least recognize that the motivation is to protect children, and yet it's being described in exactly the opposite way, that conservatives are the ones, and I like the word used, bullying kids. That's the word that they're using very effectively, that Republicans and conservatives and people who are against all this are the bullies.
There are a lot of stories coming out from detransitioners that are really, really horrifying. Andy No tweeted one, and it got deleted. And I guess because the individual posted it started getting too much attention. But you see a lot of these stories from males and females talking about how it was a huge mistake. They were confused kids going through puberty, and then they were lied to, and now their lives are forever ruined. The crazy thing to me is when you get someone who's, say, 15 years old, and then they sterilize that person, they're not going to know what they've lost for a while. And I can't imagine, I just couldn't imagine. I've seen more than enough stories and heard from more than enough people who find out rather accidentally that they're sterile, infertile, or otherwise. And it's always seen as like a very devastating story, like they can't have kids. There's always these tropes about, how about the movie Dogma? The woman says that her husband left her because she found out she couldn't have kids and he didn't want to be with someone who couldn't. That's like a portrayed as a very deeply negative thing. But now all of these young people, they're going to grow up and they're going to be like, yeah, I can't have kids. And in fact, for many of these young people, someone like Jazz Jennings, they can't actually even experience sexual sex at all.
The situation, the more I learn details about Jazz Jennings, the more appalling it sounds. The mother talking about the what's it called? Whatever the expander is, or whatever.
Dilator.
Dilator. That's what. Yeah.
Oh, there's so much more too. Because here's the thing, conservatives don't watch that show, I Am Jazz. No. And I think now people are starting to realize, like, maybe we should watch that. Because when this clip went viral showing the mother say that she basically is, like, abusing Jazz, it's a crazy clip. She says she like, hold her down and force this thing into a wound, to force the wound to stop healing. It's like, it's crazy. I think then you get conservatives.
Kid's crying, too.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah. And where are we as a society to be like, this has to stop? This is the crazy thing to me.
I'm thinking right now about, I'm still thinking about what we were just talking about. I'm happy to move on if you guys want to, but it's about bullying. You guys brought up bullying because you were saying like the left is claiming that people, the conservative people are bullying the transgender community, but like we're here talking about, no, it's about selling, like twisting kids up when they're young. That's the problem. But I'm looking at Matt Walsh's Twitter from April 17th, and it says, a tweet, this is, to win with this Bud Light situation is when they publicly apologize for promoting transgenderism. Which that's not about her. It has nothing to do with kids. He is actually saying he's angry that the concept of transgenderism is being promoted
to kids.
So he didn't say that. He just said in general. Now I'm wondering if a 20-year-old guy, rock musician, got a Bud Light contract, would anyone even make a noise about it? If his fans were 15-year-olds, I don't think anyone would even care because he's just a regular 21-year-old guy. But it's Dylan Mulvaney with a dress on, so now it's getting a lot of attention.
I absolutely would take issue with a 20-year-old musician selling beer to children.
21, but
or any. I don't care if the guy's 60 years old and for some reason his audience is 15. I think it's a bad thing. The issue is how notable is that individual in the culture war for us to even notice it's happening? Just because I didn't notice a thing doesn't mean I'm okay with it. And this is an argument the left uses all the time where they're like, if you're so concerned about that, what about this? And it's like, wow, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I am also appalled by that. They do this thing where they're like, drag queen story hour, conservatives are so mad about this, but I don't see them complaining about children beauty pageants. And it's like, what? It's like 20 years ago, me and my friends were smack talking child beauty pageants as being gross. We'll still do it today. They're just not that big. They're not that prominent. They're not in the national conversation. But I got no problem saying those things are nasty. And I got no problem saying little boys should be going to Hooters as like an appropriate place to get dinner. But that being said, as much as the left likes making that argument, I'm like, dude, women having boobs and a restaurant just having women there is very, very different from having kink shows for children.
So I want to bend this metaphor a little. If a 24-year-old musician with fans that are younger got a Bud Light contract, would anyone blink an eye?
Yes, dude.
But the thing is, you can't quantify the age of the fans. You just don't know.
But we can with TikTok.
We had this debate a little bit over cigarettes, right? They canceled Joe Camel about, 15 years ago because the cartoon image of the camel was thought to appeal to children. And so maker of those cigarettes. I can't remember which company made
Camel.
or makes Camel. It's just Camel. They got rid of Joe
wow.
Camel, and for that reason, because even though it wasn't appearing in children's media, kids were seeing the Joe Camel and thinking, okay, there's this cartoon that they associate with cigarettes.
But let's be real. Like James Bond was a bigger influence in getting kids to smoke than Joe Camel was.
If I was 20, I was an actor.
But seriously.
I was an actor in my early 20s. I mean, I'm still an actor, but I was in Hollywood for a lot of that. And if I'd booked a Bud Light commercial at the age of 25 and people went nuts on me because some of my fans were 16 and 17, I would be out of my mind pissed off at them for
Yeah,
that.
but that's
Leave
not
me.
it.
I'm over 21, man. I'm selling beer.
Right.
But that's not it. Dylan Mulvaney is on TikTok with 11 million followers. And outside of Dylan Mulvaney, the average TikTok user is 20 years old. That means if you were to take every single person using the platform, which includes adults, it still skews young. And Dylan Mulvaney's audience, at the very least, is underage and should not be drinking. But let's be real. Bud Light, Anheuser-Busch, they all know kids who are 18 are drinking. And my personal opinion is the drinking age should be 18 and people shouldn't drink either way. But if you're an adult, you should be allowed to. The point is, Dylan Mulvaney's audience isn't 20 years old. That's the TikTok average. Dylan Mulvaney's audience skews much lower than that and is probably closer to 15.
And even then, I wouldn't blame the guy for having a young audience, and I don't think it's that big. It's that he dressed up as a little girl, Eloise, and did a video a month or so ago pretending to be a little girl.
That's what they
do.
do.
And then he sells beer the next month.
Remember the guy who was the trans little girl? That old guy. Let me pull this thing up.
Oh God!
The whole drag queen story hour is also interesting because the whole drag phenomenon has changed as well. There is video of Donald Trump sitting on the couch. I can't remember what talk show it was, but next to Dame Edna. I don't know if you remember Dame Edna. Famous drag queen.
Here you go, everybody.
And it was just kind of ordinary, like Rudy Giuliani dressing in drag on Saturday Night Live. And again, it's about adults, and it's not a show meant for kids. But the strip teases and the kink shows, I think, are again, when kids are coming to that or being brought to that, that's what people are objecting to, not drag in general.
Right, and interestingly, even some Democrats don't want drag for anybody. I think it's 8%. We were talking about this the other day. Most Americans, 52%, think drag should just be for adults. A large portion are unsure, and then it's like 24% think anyone should be able to see a drag show, even a child. But those are, of course, Democrats, and a small portion of independents. Yeah, we had this story from a while ago. This is a guy who lives as a 6-year-old girl. Like, sure, whatever, man. I do your thing.
If that guy got a Bud Light contract, I'd be pissed because he's dressing as a 6-year-old.
I actually would not.
Really?
Yeah, no, I don't care. Like, remember Jack Daniels? People were floating the idea of boycotting Jack Daniels because they sponsored RuPaul Drag Race. Nobody cared.
No.
Everyone was like, hey, look what they did. And everyone was like, yeah, I don't really care that much. There was no massive national wave of outrage when people found out about that because RuPaul's Drag Race is a bunch of adults.
Right.
And then you also had Coors Light did a Pride commercial. Some people pointed out that even Yingling has a Pride commercial before. Nobody cares.
There's also a distinction from trans to drag.
Exactly.
There's a,
The issue is, I think, twofold. The first is that Dylan Mulvaney is, I think, mocking women intentionally, making it, and trans people, and targeting children. But also, let's just be real. Dylan Mulvaney is very annoying to people. And I'm not trying to be mean when I say that. I'm saying people describe Dylan as nails on a chalkboard.
I like him.
What?
He's like a theater guy I would have went to school with, man.
What I see is, with Dylan Mulvaney, I see TikTok exploiting someone who is clearly unwell. Like the Bud Light commercial, he was just like shaking back and forth and doing these weird motions. Like something's wrong. And normally if we saw someone like on The Price is Right rolling on the floor screaming at the top of their lungs, I'm not kidding. Watch the Price is Right video of Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney, more than one occasion, screams at the top of his lungs. Like, ah! And normally if you saw someone do that, you'd be like, I think this person is in need of some kind of help. He was on Ellen DeGeneres. This dude has clearly got some kind of narcissistic personality disorder. They are feeding this stuff to kids. That is why I'm upset. Now, obviously, Matt Walsh is upset with gender ideology being pushed. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. I mean, he's allowed to be mad and see whatever he wants to see. But I've said this when he talks about Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney does not represent trans people.
Right.
Not in the slightest. It is this weird mockery. It's almost trans face. It's like this dude singing about his bulge is like, come on, man. Like I think the left goes way overboard with a whole bunch of this stuff. I think they lose it when they support people like Dylan Mulvaney. But there is a fair point to be said that there are many trans people who use bathrooms and no one says anything.
Like, no one knows, maybe.
I mean, and no one, exactly. So when you see Dylan Mulvaney putting on this performance, which makes trans people look like psychopaths, to the point where it's easy to attack the entirety of all transgender people, it's like, okay, that's why Dylan Mulvaney's a problem. So I'll put it this way. And always to rope in our good friend Blair White in this one, but it's because Blair White is our friend that I want to bring this up. Blair White's super awesome. And not doing any of this weird, crazy garbage nonsense. There's a whole bunch of individuals, Sarah Higdon, we had on the show, totally rational, reasonable people who aren't rolling on the ground screaming. And then Dylan Mulvaney goes on camera and just becomes a caricature of the most insane depiction of whatever this is. Enough to the point where it's the primary focus of when conservatives are trying to say, like, hey, this is our problem with gender ideology.
Right. Well, how much of that is baiting the conservatives? I mean, they've successfully now involved the whole conservative movement in reacting in outrage to a TikTok character. How much of it is a successful marketing ploy or even a political plan to rile up conservatives using the most egregious example, let's say, of one category of entertainment, and then we go for it, and then Gavin Newsom piles on, and everybody else piles on, and they talk about Republicans bullying people, and suddenly the younger voters are convinced that Republicans are awful people who don't understand social media and don't understand them.
That was my problem with conservatives when I was like in 2005, when I was, hallmark liberal. They were so easy to upset if I made fun of Jesus. I could rile up. So predictable. They were just so overly sensitive, reactionary, just so easy to take control of those people. And it is something people need to work on.
One of the reasons people might be as sensitive about this issue in particular and TikTok is just the degree to which parents watch their kids on devices during the pandemic. And parents are hypersensitive right now to everything that's being fed to kids on social media. There's a huge problem right now of school refusal. Kids who were on their devices for 2 years and now have to go back to school and just simply refuse to sit at a desk and listen to a teacher and participate in class. And so the devices have become much more a part of kids' everyday reality. And I think that might also be driving some of this, not necessarily the transgender stuff, but you've got this person who is influencing kids. Now they're representing an alcoholic beverage or whatever. And parents are freaked out, maybe a little more than usual, because of the degree to which they've seen their kids' lives taken over by devices and social media.
I agree. I have to imagine, and some people watching may even have experienced this. One day, you ask your kid, like, what are you looking at? And they're like, oh, Dylan Mulvaney. And they're like, oh, and they look and it's Dylan Mulvaney drinking beer and being like Bud Light. Ooh, and they're like, whoa, man. Like, maybe you shouldn't be on this app if it's some adult guy dressed like a little girl trying to convince you to start drinking booze. Something about that just doesn't seem right. I think a lot of parents that's probably why this reached a level of regular Americans are saying they support a boycott of Anheuser-Busch. Nike, I think another good example of why this is the case is Nike, because people did get mad that Dylan Mulvaney was sponsored by Nike, but that one didn't really go anywhere either because that wasn't targeting children. It was just kind of insulting women, but the women didn't get pissed off enough. Going after kids and telling them to drink and basically insulting March Madness and the core demographic of just like middle-aged white dudes who drink beer. Really, really bad play on this one. So anyway, that being said, the latest news on the Matt Walsh hack is they've deleted all of the hacked tweets are gone. Looks like the account is back to normal. I hope he gets his phone back or whatever. And it looks like it's just the last tweet is, he's going to be speaking at University of Iowa.
They still got to fix his bio.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Oh, yeah. They got to fix his bio.
Up next.
They could leave it.
Sorry, you said he's still speaking at the University of Iowa tomorrow night. Walsh.
Let's jump from this and go into the other really big story. And I got to be honest, I kind of wanted to lead with this one. And part of me really despises the idea that we would lead with it at all. But I think we have to because this is a story about Ralph Yarl. I'm not interested in talking about the story of a teenager getting shot. Why? Because teenagers get shot all the time. Because trespassers get shot all the time. And these stories aren't always justified hero stories. Sometimes they're tragic stories of accidents. Why did this story get national attention? It makes no sense. Why? I've growing up in Chicago, I can't tell you how many times there's stories of a white dude shooting a black kid or a black guy shooting a white kid or something like that happening. And no one in the country cares about it. But this one time, this one story all of a sudden becomes a major headline. It's almost like they're trying to distract from something. They're trying to capture media attention or push some objective or agenda or something like that. And I got to tell you, I'm not super concerned about this story. Let me see if I have the other story. What do we got? Is it over here? No, it's not there. Is it? Actually, I don't know if I have it pulled up. The tweet I was going to pull up, I referenced earlier, is a woman being mercilessly beaten in Chicago by a large group of black teenagers. Now, hold on. A lot of people pointed out she's not actually the subject of the beating. She's just being attacked so that they can beat someone else. And I'm just like,
much better.
Yeah, okay. Like, wait, what? So the video is they grab her by the neck and they pull her by her neck back and then slam her to the ground or something. And then I guess start pummeling and beating some guy. And that we're supposed to be like, oh, okay, grabbing this woman by the throat and slamming her to the ground and then stomping on this guy it's okay now. But my point is this. Why didn't any of these stories about the cars getting torched become the national conversation? Where was the activists' protest? Where was the outrage? I think this explains it. Why is this story in the news? Because people protested. When a white woman gets beat in Chicago, can you rely on any conservative to go march in the street? Of course you can't. They don't care. They'll post on Twitter and go, man, look at that. And then they'll crack open a Bud Light and have a sip. Okay, maybe not so much Bud Light anymore. But some of them still are probably cracking open Bud Light, being like, what do I care? And that's the issue. The left is fervent and willing to push and fight for anything. And the right is kind of just like, meh, what am I going to do about it, right? Here we are.
There's definitely a movement to transform the United States government into something more mob rule, I think, with mass movements and pressure. And that's why they're so active trying to do it.
Well, those of us who know and love Chicago, and I also grew up in Chicago suburbs, Oak Park and Skokie.
I do have the video, actually. We can pull it up.
We understand that where all this happened was by Millennium Park, which is basically the heart of the city. It's the touristy area. And it's shocking that something like that would happen there. And it's a repeat in the sense of the 2020 riots when looters went down Michigan Avenue. This was no longer confined to the south side and the west side. This was now happening in full view. And it's one of the reasons people voted out Lori Lightfoot. But they've voted in Brandon Johnson, who's even more to the left. And
yeah, but
he's been saying crazy things about this.
But you know why?
Teachers unions, I mean, basically.
No. It was all race. I tracked the racial the voting patterns and then the racial demographics of Chicago, and it's 1 for 1. The only exception is the university area overtly voted for Johnson, whereas every other part of the city basically just voted for, like, the white neighborhoods voted for the white guy, the Hispanic areas voted for the Hispanic guy, and the black neighborhoods voted for Lori Lightfoot. So my prediction was, if all of the black neighborhoods top 3 candidates were all black, even though in the heart of the black neighborhoods of Chicago, their first choice was Lori Lightfoot. Their second choice was Brandon Johnson. Their third choice was, some other guy. But when you look at how they voted, the white candidates don't even register at all.
Right. Voting in Chicago is kind of a racial census and always has been. Paul Vallas, the guy who narrowly lost in this election, is the latest in a long line of liberal white reformers in Chicago who can't get elected. And Vallas is a household name in Chicago because he ran the Chicago Public Schools. He was appointed by Mayor Daley. And Daley ran the Chicago machine. It was corrupt, but he ran it with some nod, at least, toward the idea that residents deserve some value for their services. And he appointed Vallas to clean up Chicago Public Schools. He did a pretty decent job. Obviously, they're still not great. But you just can't win running in a general election in Chicago like that. The only reason Rahm Emanuel did is he was seen as Obama's surrogate in Chicago, and that's why he got elected.
So my prediction was, if the university sector is going to vote for Brandon Johnson and the black neighborhoods are going to vote for whichever candidate who's running is black, and the white neighborhoods are going to vote for whichever candidate is white, it's going to be Brandon Johnson who wins because the tiebreaker goes to the far left extremists. Conservatives don't have any footprint, don't have any organizing, don't have any base. So the only politically active sector was the far left extremists. And so it was fairly obvious who was going to break the tie.
Right. And the white voters in Chicago, very few of them are conservative. It's not like the racial breakdown maps onto any kind of political breakdown. The irony is that Chicago white liberals are very far to the left, as you mentioned, around the universities and things like that. So for them, they hate conservatives. I'm generalizing, of course. There are some conservatives, there are some Republicans, but they would never be caught dead voting for a Republican, and yet they're stuck in this kind of racial vortex where they're living in a city where they basically have this democracy that doesn't work. Yes, they threw out the bad mayor, but they're going to get someone who's possibly even worse.
Let's pull this image back up. You can see it right here. And I have one thing to say to this. Actually, let me ask you, Joel. Does that screenshot anger you in any way? Does it make you angry?
Absolutely.
It does.
It's awful that anybody gets beaten up like that. And
well, I got to stop you right there. Do you not believe that women have the right to vote?
Of course they do.
Okay, well then why are you angry? Are you angry that this woman's choice you think is wrong? No. I respect this woman's right to choose. And if she voted for this, well, who am I to be angry that she's getting what she voted for? Right? Women have agency. They can vote for whatever they want. And I believe that if I were to make a wager on who she voted for, likely she voted for the Democrats. She probably voted for Brandon Johnson. I mean, that's the most likely outcome. The guy won. So my view is this. Obviously, no one seriously wants anyone to get attacked like that. But at a certain point, I have to say, I will not project my values onto someone else. We will go and vote. And then if you are successful in, supporting your ideas, you win. I look at the people of Chicago with all the rioting and the looting, the vandalism, the chaos and the shootings. And I'm just like, once again, the people of Chicago have gotten what they voted for. Why should I be upset about that? I don't live there. Like if a bunch of people in France voted to make it so that everybody gets a free baguette in the morning, I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not going to cry and scream and demand an end to socialism. I'm like, I don't live in France. So let them vote for what they want.
The tragedy is that so many people who just want to live regular lives are leaving these places, so there's almost no prospect of political change. And it's possible you might have seen Republican candidates, for example, do better in the midterms in some of the blue states of the Northeast if more people hadn't moved to Florida. And, good for them. But these places are not benefiting from democracy because, yes, they can sometimes get rid of the worst candidates, but they can't elect anyone who's going to make a difference and make anything better. And so there's this vortex in these cities and states that are just going to continue to fail. And what you saw this week with the House Judiciary Committee having those hearings on crime in New York was that, as Mark Levin pointed out, it took a House Republican majority to give voice to these Democratic voters in New York City who had been ignored by their own party for decades and who finally had a chance to tell their story. And all Democrats could tell them was that they were props for Donald Trump.
That is hilarious.
Smart, brilliant, masterful move by Republicans to say, we're going to come in here and we're going to try and address the issues that are concerning to you. Brilliant.
Yeah, and it took them to do it, but there's no mechanism in these cities to make these people's lives any better. And yes, they keep voting in the same governments, but they're not really presented with choices.
Well, let me ask you, are you for Trump or DeSantis?
Trump right now.
Trump. If Trump gets elected in 2024, and then as soon as he's inaugurated in 2025, he immediately begins arresting these politicians in New York and Chicago and LA and SF, and then appointing interim government, would that be a bad thing?
I don't think he should arrest them, but I think he can.
Like Cuomo?
Well, which one? The
politician,
the former governor?
Yeah.
He's sort of.
He killed a bunch of people in nursing
Well,
homes.
okay. I think it's tough to call for the arrest of the opposition, but I think he could certainly take legal action against these cities. One thing I wish he would do or would have done in LA.
But let
me just finish the thought. I think there are other things the federal government can do that have nothing to do with dealing with opposition politicians. I think FEMA should come into LA and declare it a disaster for the homeless problem. It's the only way we're going to solve the homeless problem is to get that level of intervention.
But my question was, would it be a bad thing?
I think so. I think you can't arrest the opposition. I didn't like it when Trump
Even
said
for the crimes they committed?
I don't know if you define that as a crime. If you're in political office and you make terrible, terrible mistakes like Andrew Cuomo made with sending...
But he was told he was going to kill people. He was warned by his medical advisors that putting COVID patients in nursing homes would kill them. And he didn't want to he had the comfort ready and available and the Javits Center. And I guess he didn't want Trump to get a victory. So my view is...
Will people testify to that?
That was in the news. I don't know. It was like I think the New York Times reported, I'm pretty sure, that he was warned.
He was warned fairly early on. But at that stage, though, I think there was so much conflicting advice. I'm not trying to make excuses for him. And actually, I was one of the people who reported pretty extensively on that story of the nursing homes in New York. But I just don't know that you can hold politicians criminally liable for terrible policy mistakes as long as they're not breaking the law. Obviously, one of the worst decisions made during COVID was that decision, especially when they had the Army Field Hospital and so forth. But
the reason I ask is that the reason I ask is because quite literally what the Democrats are doing, yes, is going after their opposition with arresting them, like targeting Trump specifically.
Right.
But they obviously won't stop there. They're look at how they handle the protests at the Supreme Court justices' homes. Law enforcement for Antifa, non-existent. Law enforcement for Proud Boys, lock them up. So it's active and it's happening. And conservatives are the ones who play the game where it's like, well, we shouldn't return those tactics. We shouldn't do the same thing. And it's like, okay, well, Trump will be convicted. There is no circumstance in my mind where a New York jury will acquit Donald Trump. That just seems impossible to me. But maybe I'm wrong about that. And then people are going to be like, well, it's a state issue, so he can't be pardoned at the federal level. So even if he gets elected, he'll be in prison in New York City or state. So I don't know how that works. But they're doing it. They've been doing it. And then I look at what's going on in all these cities, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I think it would be a good thing that you get some like autocrat to go in and start purging and getting rid of the opposition or anything like that, because they would do the same thing. But I kind of feel like at this point, that's the only thing that's going to happen. Either it's going to be Democrats doing it to Republicans like they're already doing now, or Republicans doing it to Democrats. It doesn't matter what you think is good. It doesn't matter what you want to happen. What matters is Democrats are currently doing it. And if Republicans don't, then Republicans will just be the ones getting locked up, and then you'll live under the boot of the Democratic Party.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I've actually said publicly that once they indicted Trump, I said, well, the very first thing that should happen when a new Republican administration takes over, whether it's Trump or somebody else, is they should immediately indict and arrest Joe Biden and his family for all the influence peddling they've done, for all the financial crimes. And that's not speculative. That's public record. I hear Democrat spokespeople going on Fox and saying things like, well, where's the evidence? Well, the laptop you've been ignoring for 3 years, as for one thing. So I think they've set a precedent. And the only way you get back to a reasonable middle is if the Democrats know that you're capable of retaliating. I think that's one of the reasons there's still a filibuster, by the way, because when Harry Reid got rid of the filibuster for some of the judicial nominees, and then Republicans came in and got rid of it for all judicial nominees and put Republican nominees on the Supreme Court, Democrats learned the hard way that by busting these norms, they set themselves up for failure. And I think that's one of the reasons they didn't get rid of the filibuster during the first 2 years of Biden's term, when there was a lot of pressure to do it. He's talking about doing it still, but they know now that you could very well be on the other foot after 2024. It probably will be in the Senate because it's such a favorable map for Republicans.
But that's still stamp collecting compared to what the Democrats are doing.
Correct.
They're actively trying to imprison Donald Trump at the federal level, at the state level in New York, and in Georgia. And the Republicans are like,
don't forget the Hague, war crimes or crimes against humanity. I mean, you're absolutely right. They'll go after him wherever they can, and it's disgusting. I think
so. The end result is either Donald Trump goes in, immediately instructs his new AG, his acting AG, once he's in, to file criminal indictments for all literal and provable criminal charges against as many bureaucrats and politicians as possible. We can't just sit back anymore and be like, well, we know they're corrupt, but going after them would destabilize the system. It's like, you kidding? The system's destabilized.
No, I agree with you. If you have literal and provable criminal charges, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Obama killed a 16-year-old kid, Cuomo, Newsom, Whitmer. Who else do we got? A handful of governors killed a bunch of, nursing home residents. So I think those right off the bat are plain and obvious. You've got constitutional violations in every single blue state, which does violate federal law. There's a federal law of a public official who intentionally deprives someone of their constitutional rights. It's actually a crime. So he could actually indict all of them on all of this. Heck, he could even indict Ron DeSantis. Not that would go over very well, because Ron DeSantis was one of the governors who actually lifted the restrictions and let the state reopen. But in New York, shutting down churches, and then when the Supreme Court was like, you can't do it, he goes, okay, I'll just issue another executive order and do it again. Like, oh, come on. At a certain point, it's like, you're committing crimes and abusing your power. So I kind of feel like that's the only path that results in any real change. The end result is, if Donald Trump, I'm saying outright, arresting people for actually crimes that they're indicted for, I'm not saying to randomly go in and just be like, well, we're going to arrest him for no reason. I'm saying like actually be like, okay, well, that guy didn't actually do that, so you're good. This guy clearly has a list of things he's done that's corrupt. Okay, we're going to charge you. We can't just sit back and be like politicians are above the law anymore, especially considering Democrats made the same exact argument. That's the game that we're playing right now. They say that, well, Donald Trump, may have filed the books wrong, so he's got to go to prison. And I'm like, okay, well, Barack Obama blew up a kid in Yemen.
Jail.
Lock him up. If Donald Trump has to go to prison for 6 months because he filed his books wrong, well, it's unfortunate. I look forward to seeing Barack Obama serve life in jail for killing Abdulrahman al-Awlaki.
If you will if putting Donald Trump in jail for 6 months or whatever will get Barack Obama in jail for killing an American citizen, I will drag Donald Trump's ass to jail kicking and screaming myself. I will go to Florida and get him. To put Obama in jail for violating the Constitution? Absolutely.
But beyond just that, I mean, he murdered more than, I think it was like 4 American citizens. I could be wrong. I know Anwar and Abdulrahman.
I think it was like 6.
Was it 6?
I've heard 6. I've heard 4 before.
What about George Bush Jr. and Dick Cheney?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Are you kidding?
See, the problem is if you went into office as the president and you're like, Schedule F, I'm going after all of them. You hear me? You're all indicted. Everyone's indicted. You'd wake up dead the next morning.
Well, yeah.
You wouldn't wake up the next morning. You'd be dead. No one would lose their job.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Well, I don't know about that.
No, I disagree. We're not in the era. We're in the era of character assassination. Look what they're doing to Trump. They're doing everything in their power to try and stop him, and you don't want to make a martyr of people. The CIA learned this a long time ago. They've turned the people they were trying to fight. They created immortal statues of, and they're like, okay, we shouldn't do that anymore. So what do? Julian Assange is a good example. Julian Assange didn't wake up dead. They just locked him in a box for a decade and then accused him of being a rapist.
Absolutely right that it is character assassination. That's why they're trying to prevent Trump from running for president. I think he has a near 0% chance of becoming president at this point.
Let me ask you something.
I don't know, man. Like Epstein is dead. So, I mean, I do think that they will go with options depending on the person. So maybe you're right about Donald Trump. They would go for character assassination.
But Epstein wasn't a strong, like, public figure.
Yeah, but the CIA is not above killing people.
Well, sure, I get it. But what I'm saying is Epstein's not a good example because he was trying to be in the shadows.
Fair. Let me ask you something about the interference in elections aspect of this. So you asked whether I would support DeSantis or Trump, and I hesitated but said I'd support Trump. I'm on record several months ago as saying I would prefer to see another candidate emerge for a variety of reasons that aren't terribly surprising. But when they indicted Trump, I said, this is forcing people like me to become Trump voters, whether we wanted to or not, because this is now the issue. If you can do this, if you can corrupt the system like this, the only way to protest against it is to make Trump the president. There's no other way to do it. Are we being pushed into this? Is this a successful ploy by the Biden administration to craft an opponent that it thinks it can beat? They were wrong about that in 2016 as well, but how do we react to that as voters? How do we reason through that?
I don't think the same strategy would work. I think they were lucky that everything was locked down and people had to vote by mail. People didn't have sports, people didn't have movies, people didn't have entertainment. The only thing they could do was vote. And so that they hyper-focused everything. That will not work again, especially with the horrifying job Joe Biden has done. There's no... they're showing all these polls where they're like, if it's Ron DeSantis, Biden loses, but if it's Trump, Trump loses. And I'm like, yeah, we get it. There's elements of the machine that really love Ron DeSantis. I like Ron DeSantis. I think he does a really great job. But boy, do they hate Donald Trump to the point where they lied about all of the polls. Not to mention, how many people are still secret Trump voters who don't want to admit they're going to vote for Trump? I can tell you this. I know of one celebrity family that publicly is as liberal can be and privately voted for Trump twice. Yep. And I'm not going to say who they are. It's not my business. But there's tons of these people. And the funny thing is a lot of these celebrities, taxes, only reason, legit, only reason taxes. Yep. They couldn't tell you about the culture war. I was talking to someone and they were like, oh yeah, that's the celebrity guy in that movie. Yeah, he voted for Trump. And the only reason he said was because Trump was going to lower his taxes. Only thing he cared about. Publicly, he's woke. Publicly, he's on Twitter and like, oh, Trump is so bad. And he's like, I better vote for that guy.
You know what I'm doing, Joel, is like just trying to keep an open mind and watch for the best candidate. Because I think Vivek Ramaswamy is far superior mentally than either Trump or DeSantis. He's almost a billionaire, self-made by like 35 years old.
Yeah, he's amazing. Let me throw out another name there. I had an opportunity to see most of the potential contenders. Some of them have already dropped out, but last year at a couple of meetings I was at, Nikki Haley had an energy when she was on stage that was just different and interesting, and she's really struggling in the polls right now, and I know that a significant portion of the conservative base doesn't trust her, but does she have a shot? Is there some lane where she can emerge somehow out of this mess?
I imagine the chat is freaking out right now.
Good. So what is it? But let's talk
Trump
about it.
in 2024. That's Jeff Walsh.
But Nikki Haley is what they're freaking out about.
The Republican Party is, look, the neocons fled to the Democratic Party. They're not coming back, and the Republican Party is where it is now. It is the Trump Party. So you can entertain anybody you want.
So if the concern that Trump is made, they're like, no, he can't even run. It's illegal. Is that's in that reality, which it looks like we're headed towards. I mean, unless you say a New York jury is going to acquit this guy.
Even if they convict him, I think he can run. And I think for that reason, I think I would vote for Trump, just to say, you can't do this to us.
I don't know a lot about Nikki Haley. I remember. How has she been political a long time?
Yeah, I actually met her at a conservative blogging conference. This is way back in 2009. Red State, which was one of the first conservative blogs, had a conference, and she was there. So was Ted Cruz, people who didn't hold any kind of real serious public office. I think he was Solicitor General of Texas or something, but she was just running for governor of South Carolina, and she came and talked to these bloggers. I met her, got to know her a little bit. I didn't think she was necessarily qualified to be UN ambassador, but Trump put her in there, and she did a fantastic job. She's had some good things to say, some things I've been critical of and that sort of thing, but just the energy when she's on stage and I'll just put it on the table, having a female candidate is different. It's different than what we're seeing, and so it's compelling for that reason. Again, maybe not compelling enough because she's below 5% in the polls and that sort of thing, but are there alternatives? Again, I say this as someone who's also said, if they do this to Trump, there's no other option. You have to resist the system by voting for him. It's not even about the issues anymore. There's only one issue, and it's freedom and justice and the rule of law, and there's only one vote you can take. That's how I feel about it.
Let's jump back to the story about Ralph Yarl, because we did deviate, and let's break this down. We got the story from the Post Millennial. Surprise, surprise, these people are lying again. Washington Post retracts false claim that Ralph Yarl was killed in Missouri shooting. This is not the first time they've done this, where they've claimed that some story was someone was killed when it was like, no, they're actually not dead. And this is another one. Why? Well, the story goes out, as the saying goes, the lie travels halfway around the world before the truth can strap on his boots. This story comes out from the Washington Post, where they say that this kid was killed. You get protests, you get anger, you get animosity. They then come back and say, whoops, he's alive, actually. But this is the story they've been pushing in the media, which to me makes almost no sense. Why is this story a national story? Is it sad? Sure. I'm sad when anybody gets shot for something like this. But I'll tell you what, I'll break it down for you simply. I think they're lying. I'll tell you why. The story is, Ralph Yarl, the black 16-year-old boy who was shot twice after accidentally ringing the doorbell of the wrong home when picking up his brothers, is crying buckets of tears, his mother told CBS News. Full stop. He didn't accidentally ring the doorbell. He intentionally rang the doorbell at the wrong house. So you see how they're already trying to frame it here? He accidentally rang the doorbell at this wrong house. No, he intentionally did it. He intentionally parked in the driveway, got up to the house, went there, and it was just the wrong house. You can say he accidentally went to this house, but he intentionally rang the doorbell and went up to the stairs. And now I think they've changed the story several times. Let me see if I have the tweet here. Take a look at the original tweet. Twitter preserved the metadata. The headline, Kansas City teen shot after entering wrong house. And that makes you wonder, why did they change the headline? Why did they initially report that this kid entered the home? Could it be that they got it wrong? The story is that the man, this guy Lester, shot through the glass screen door, hitting the kid in the head and I think in the shoulder or the upper chest. And that proves, they say, that he needlessly just shot the kid. However, they mention, let me see if, here we go, let me read this. They say Andrew Lester, the 84-year-old white homeowner who shot Ralph, notice they always include the races, turned himself in Tuesday, etc. Lester claimed to police that he opened fire through the door of his home without saying a single word because he was scared to death of the unarmed teen. Clay County prosecutor Thompson said Monday that there appears to be a racial component of the case, but he clarified the probable cause statement did not indicate that the case was racially motivated. According to the charging documents, Lester told police after he shot Ralph that it was the last thing he wanted to do, but says he believed he was protecting himself against a physical confrontation, which he would not have been prepared for given his advanced age. Lester pointed to Ralph's size, which he claimed was 6 feet, and Lester's inability to defend himself as the reasoning behind his actions. The original story, let me actually pull up the archive so you can see how they've manipulated this, said that the teenager grabbed the door and was trying to open it. And Time Magazine, of course, changes the story. So let me pull up the archive, pop it on over, and we'll scroll down to what it originally said. And this is the original. It says the shooter's not identified. So even then, wow, they don't even have the earliest version of the story doesn't have anything in it. This is one of the problems with stealth editing. So let's jump back to the middle one. See if I can find where they wrote that this kid didn't just ring the doorbell, but he actually tried entering the house. So we'll scroll down. Okay, why was the shooter released? Man, this is the hard thing about how they keep changing the story. You know what I'll do? I'll pull it up on my Twitter. So
I saw that somewhere. It may have been on your Twitter, but also...
But they keep changing the story. This is the problem with stealth editing. It's so annoying. It's not like I'm trying to pull it up.
This is all so soon after the incident, and we don't know most of the facts. If we've learned one thing from these kinds of stories, it's you have to wait for all the facts to come out. But as sad as this is, what really got me about it today was when the White House started commenting on it, and they revealed that the president had called the victim, which is appropriate, if you want to express sympathy and that sort of thing. But Joe Biden told people not too long ago during the whole gun control debate after Trayvon Martin, Joe Biden told people to shoot through their front door if they wanted someone to go away. This is Joe Biden. I don't know if you can pull it up. I think it was 2013.
Yeah.
And conservatives made a big deal out of it at the time because it's such ridiculous advice that most reasonable gun owners would know that that's really stupid, just to shoot through a door without opening it or whatever. He said that he gave his wife that advice and that she was told to use the shotgun and just shoot through the front door if you're scared. This guy followed Joe Biden's advice.
Yep. So I want to correction. I actually had the wrong link. But they do change the story, but it was a wrong link. Here's what it says. Excerpts of the prosecutor's probable cause statement posted online reveal that Lester told police he picked up his gun after hearing the doorbell ring while lying down. He opened an interior door and saw a black male approximately 6 feet tall pulling on the exterior door of his house. Believing it was a break-in attempt, he fired twice after opening the door.
Man, I have an anecdotal experience kind of like this. I went to my childhood friend's house 4 years ago. Hadn't seen his parents in a couple decade, 15 years. And they were like my second parents growing up. And I went and I knocked. He opened the door and I was like, hey. And he was like, who are you? And I started to hug him and he got back and was like, who are you? And I was like, it's Ian. And he went, oh. But there was a moment where if he was this 84-year-old man, if he was older, 84-year-old man, maybe he's been drinking, his mind isn't where it used to be. Wait for them to let you in every time.
This sounds like it was a big accident. It sounds like this kid went to the wrong house. It sounds like he did nothing wrong. But they're turning into this Black Lives Matter racist thing when the story is, you go to an old man's house and then you try opening the door and gaining entrance to his house. I don't know about Missouri, but in many states, people have the legal right to use lethal force to stop you from committing a burglary.
Yes, burglary is not about intention, I don't think. Burglary is just about the act of entering, isn't it? I mean, if you're not uninvited.
Correct. Yeah.
Burglary is crossing a property barrier.
So if that's the case, this kid was burglarizing that guy's house.
And
well, in the mind of the homeowner.
No, factually.
He grabbed the handle and started to open it. But the
That
guy
was
opened the
attempted
door, so maybe it seemed like an invitation. I mean, this is sketchy, and the kid's not going to get charged with burglary, I would doubt.
No, of course not. But this is the reality. I don't think the kid's not going to get charged. There's no criminal burglary. But I think in terms of the self-defense claim, there is an element of burglary. People think burglary means theft. It doesn't. It means like crossing a barrier onto someone's property. So I learned this the hard way. If you have no signs on your property, anyone's allowed to enter your property. They can't walk up to your house and cross a barrier, though. However, if the screen, like let's say the door's open, they can walk in your house. They're legally allowed to. And all you can do is tell them to leave. Yeah.
If your front door's open and no signs, people can just walk in?
People are legally allowed to walk into your home if the door's unlocked.
Clarified.
Yep. So if
unlocked or open?
Unlocked. Unlocked.
If it's unlocked.
Unlocked. Yep. We dealt with this one personally when we had someone come onto this property. It happened more than once. The police were like, okay, entering the house is potentially burglary in the lowest degree. It's a misdemeanor, and here's what you get, because you're not supposed to enter someone's house like that. However, they still have an argument over why they think they were entitled to enter the house. If someone says there was no intent, it was an accident, I went to the wrong house, you're not going to get criminally charged. So I'm not saying anyone can just walk in any house they want. If a kid accidentally walks in the wrong house, there's no criminal charges. Nothing happened. If you put up a sign that says no trespassing, now they've trespassed when they walk past it. Now you can have them trespass, which is a slap on the wrist, and the police will remove them. If you take the thinnest of string and wrap it around your front yard and someone steps over it, they've now committed burglary. That simple. It's the craziest thing.
Well, the other interesting thing about this is what they didn't charge. I heard the family's attorney expressing concern, maybe outrage, that the prosecutors hadn't charged the homeowner with attempted murder. And they had just gone for these other felonies that are short of that. And I think that's because the police and the prosecution know that the homeowner probably didn't have that intent. Attempted murder requires intent to kill. And what the family attorney wanted to see was some kind of racial motivation. That's what the activists want to see. They want to see some kind of criminal intent, some criminal mindset. And I think that the authorities know that they don't have that. And I think it's probably closer to what you're saying, which is an accident where maybe the homeowner wasn't legally entitled to use lethal force.
I think he was.
That's what they're going to fight out. And maybe they're just charging him so they can start some kind of investigation and satisfy the public without people burning down Kansas City or whatever. But look, this is all happening in the shadow of a crime wave that's happening not just there, but throughout the country, where people are attacked in their homes. And in LA, we just had our mayor propose hiring 1,000 new cops. That's because Eric Garcetti, her predecessor, bowed to the Black Lives Matter movement and cut 10% of the police budget. And then there's a crime wave in Los Angeles, and they wonder why.
Right.
And I don't know what is in the mind of this homeowner, nor does the family attorney of the victim, but certainly there are a lot of people who are living very scared right now, and that has to play into some of this. I mean, there's got to be a certain amount of tension. And again, we don't know the motivations. We can't read minds, but what we're being told to do is to read minds. What we're being told to do is imagine that this homeowner had some kind of racial bias. And that's why people get set on edge about this stuff instead of just waiting and hearing and listening to the facts. And look, I think it's okay that the president called. What about the victims he doesn't call? There are a lot of victims.
What about Nashville? Did he call them?
No.
I think Jill Biden visited a vigil for him. I was looking that up, but I don't know about Joe.
About it.
Well, you know, the president hasn't been to East Palestine.
Boom, right here.
Yep.
Let me read the section for you. This is Missouri stand your ground law, and it says you can use physical force to defend yourself. Yada yada. Section 3. Such force is used against a person who unlawfully enters, remains after unlawfully entering, or attempts to unlawfully enter private property that is owned or leased by an individual or is occupied by an individual who has been given specific authority authority by the property owner to occupy the property, claiming a justification of using protective force under this section. A person does not have a duty to retreat from a dwelling, etc. So simply put, it says a person shall not use deadly force upon another person unless the circumstances specified in subsection 1 of this under the circumstances specified in subsection 1 of this section, unless, and again, such force is used against a person who unlawfully enters, remains after unlawfully entering, or attempts to unlawfully enter private property.
Wow. The legal question,
end of story.
If I could put on my law school hat, the legal question here is going to be reasonableness. So you see the word reasonably appearing several times in that. The question is going to be, was the homeowner acting reasonably?
Yes.
And you may think so. The question also then becomes, is it the mind of a reasonable average person or the mind of a reasonable 84-year-old who lives alone and may have dementia and that sort of thing? Because if it's the latter.
And that's what I mean.
Right. So it becomes a little bit different. And that's certainly why they didn't go for attempted murder, because
I think they're going to lose completely.
Do you think 84-year-olds with dementia should have guns? Because they take their license away sometimes.
I mean, he has to be
Second
tested
Amendment.
before you could say that he's
right. We're just speculating.
And that's
no one's saying he has dementia.
But that's a red flag law. And I think if you got a problem with Second Amendment, you got to amend it before you can take someone's guns away, even if they are 84.
Totally.
But
and I recognize.
Do you think that we should consider?
No.
Okay.
No, I think
I'm not surprised you said that.
Well, I mean, if anybody needs a gun to defend themselves, it's someone who's older.
That's totally true.
I mean, like, look, I'm a strapping young lad, right? I can defend myself better than an 84-year-old man. I'm not saying I'm going to go, Brazilian jiu-jitsu on anybody, but I can run, I can jump, I can throw a punch. Old man ain't going to be doing any of that stuff. He or she, they need something to protect themselves. Now, here's what I think. I think it's a tragic story, but you're an 84-year-old man and you see someone grab the door and try to come in. Now they're trying to illegally enter your property.
Attempted illegal entrance.
I mean, look, when I first heard the story and they claimed that this kid rang the doorbell and you shot him, I'm like, that makes no sense at all.
Oh, and I got the quote, Joel, that you were mentioning earlier from Joe Biden. This is from 2013. Joe told Field and Stream magazine, quote, "If you want to keep someone away from your house," Joe Biden said, "just fire the shotgun through the door."
I hate him so much. He is so stupid.
This guy should cite that in his defense.
Yeah.
I hope his lawyers use it and say, look, Joe Biden said. But, look, the reality is the left right now is saying he rang the doorbell and the guy shot him through the door. And it's like, well, where do you get that account from? Where did that statement come from? I got to be honest. It didn't come from the kid who was in the hospital unconscious because he was shot in the head.
It came from
It came from the homeowner.
I heard
and
it,
they
bro.
then twisted his words. They omitted the part where he said, "I saw this this young man grabbing the door to open it and enter my property."
The kid thought he was going to his friend's house.
And that sucks, man.
But he wouldn't go to the wrong friend's house. He was going somewhere.
He was picking up his little brothers.
Jeez.
Now, here's the issue. If this guy does get convicted, I will tell you what's going to happen. Every single burglary and home invasion is going to be a oops, wrong house. Every single one.
I don't think he should get convicted for this because the guy was illegally attempting to enter his property.
That's right, he was.
Neither of them should get in trouble for
I
this.
wonder if there will be like riots and stuff like that.
There are already protests.
Yeah, protests, but I wonder if there'll be like riots and stuff.
Definitely.
There was a much clearer.
They're rioting
case.
for nothing in Chicago right now.
It's getting to that time of year, man.
A few
riot
years ago,
season.
You guys remember the Ahmaud Arbery case where the jogger
Of
was
course.
shot? Yeah.
Excuse me.
Jogger.
The felony burglary suspect, you mean? I'm not. That's not a joke. That's a fact.
The controversy there was a lot lower. There weren't protests right away, and there was more of a consensus that what happened to him shouldn't have happened. That he was chased down. And I thought that what happened there was interesting because the family attorney didn't take the road of encouraging protests. They went to law enforcement. They worked with law enforcement. They didn't try to make a big national issue out of it. And that attorney also, interestingly, went to the Trump White House and worked with Trump on some of the criminal justice issues and that kind of thing. And it wasn't, rightly or wrongly, whatever you think of the verdict, it wasn't a case that divided Americans. It wasn't a case that was used by the movement, even though the Black Lives Matter movement existed. It didn't become this divisive issue.
But that's because conservatives are feckless. That story was clear-cut wrong. And it was funny that after the Kyle Rittenhouse case, you got a bunch of conservatives coming out being like, see, the Ahmaud Arbery case proves that conservatives aren't racist, despite the fact they knew nothing about the case. The dude wasn't a jogger. The prosecution and the defense never claimed he was jogging. And the argument actually was that, well, most people believed he was the guy on camera breaking into those homes. And so the story, the criminal case became, did the McMichaels have the legal right to commit a citizen's arrest? And the question to the jury was, do they need to be witnesses to the crime or not? And the jury decided you must be a witness. Therefore, the citizen's arrest was unlawful. Therefore, the death resulting from citizen's arrest is criminal. The fact that the guy who simply filmed it got the rest of his life in prison proves that it was a complete sham of a trial and a criminal case. But the fact that it didn't divide the nation, to me, just proves that conservatives give up really easily, or that they take their points whenever they can, and they're not actually in this for the real long haul.
I think a lot of the media knowledge about that case wasn't unveiled for me until after it was over. I didn't really learn about the intricacies until after McMichaels was in jail, unfortunately.
Right. And that's the issue. Conservatives didn't pay attention, did not care.
It wasn't broadcast on...
It was live. Yeah, you could watch the trial live.
What I mean is it wasn't covered at great length by the media right or left the way that like the Rittenhouse trial was covered.
It was like in this quiet neighborhood. It happened.
No,
it wasn't in the
I'm sorry,
street
you
with
guys
all these
are.
riots
It's
and
not
stuff.
true. As CBS, ABC,
covered
they were
as-
running the show live.
It was covered as extensively?
And the right ignored the whole thing. And then once these guys got convicted, a bunch of conservatives were like, see, it was the right call. And like, I think even Tulsi Gabbard came out and was like praising the conviction. And I'm like, something doesn't seem right about this. Like, why did all of these people just come out and immediately side against these guys without knowing anything that happened? I'm not saying what they did was a good thing. They were told by the police not to pursue Ahmaud Arbery. But this idea that when the Black Lives Matter activists claimed a guy was jogging and was hunted down by white supremacists and lynched was a complete and total lie. And I'll say it. You can throw away all the facts of that case and just say this. A guy got in his car, saw the McMichaels driving their car to chase after him, so he picked up his phone and filmed it. They put that man in prison for the rest of his life.
I cannot even believe that guy went to jail.
And they did it because, in my opinion, he embarrassed them. And here's what I think happened. The story died. Ahmaud Arbery dies. And the McMichaels say self-defense. The police say, okay, this guy was the felony burglary suspect. These guys did live there. That's what they assume happened. The guy driving his car apparently was tired of getting crapped all over because they were saying that they chased him down or whatever. So he goes, I've got the video and I'm going to release it. So I think what happened was his lawyer gave it to a radio host who then put it online, which ignited Black Lives Matter anger. I think then the DA said, you stupid mother, I'm going to make you pay for doing this to me.
What's that guy's name?
God, I
you know that guy's name?
Brian something. You can look it up. I forgot his name. I think they did this because they were punishing this guy for smearing them in the national headlines, and it was just corruption. But there you go. I mean, even to this, still to this day, they call that guy a jogger. It's like, oh yeah, 20 miles from his house, you know, in a neighborhood that's seeing a string of burglaries, and there's video footage from one of the houses that was broken into, which appears to show Ahmaud Arbery illegally entering, burglarizing the house. And then the media narrative is he was jogging. So, you know.
William Bryan,
Was that his name?
52, accused of joining Gregory McMichael. Yeah, as they chased down Arbery.
He wasn't with them. He simply got in his car and started filming. And they said, you know what? We're going to put you in prison for the rest of your life for filming this. That's a lesson to everybody.
Roddy Bryan.
Yep.
Roddy's his nickname.
And it's funny when like you look at their faces in the trial when they're found guilty, they're like shocked. How could this have happened? And that dude, if he just did not release the footage, it was self-defense. The Ahmaud Arbery runs up to the McMichaels, attacks him. They fight over the shotgun, and then he gets shot. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I wish it didn't happen. I mean, it sucks. And there's a good argument to be made. If I was Ahmaud Arbery and I had a car behind me and I had a car in front of me, I might think fight or flight too. So I can understand that. But this idea that he was some innocent jogger is just ridiculous. And I there you go. But the funny thing is, the narrative is going to be the narrative. If conservatives aren't paying attention, don't know anything about the case, they're just going to say whatever the left said, because even talking about Ralph Yarl is entertaining the left's decision to make this the national story instead of that white woman who got choke slammed by a mob of black teenagers in Chicago.
But if talking about the Ralph Yarl case makes it so that neither of these people are charged and Ralph survives and maybe the two of them can even make amends or something, like that would be fantastic. That would be
Agreed.
the outcome I'd like to see.
And the outcome I want to see in the long run is we set the narrative and we set the tone and we decide what stories need to get national prominence. And I hope we get to that point so long as we keep doing shows like this. And it gets to the point where the New York Times or CNN can say, take a look at this instance of a shooting that happens all the time, but we decided to highlight on racial grounds. And then everyone just says, I'm not interested in talking about that. For the time being, we may be prominent in media, but we're not the corporate press and we're not as big as, say, CNN, despite the fact their ratings are in the gutter. YouTube puts them on the front page. So it's our job to debunk their lies. Hopefully, it will be the job of some other young upstart to debunk our mistakes and errors in the future because we will be setting the narrative.
Hear that? You're listening. That's
Yeah.
your job.
Well, I think if I can just shift slightly here to something I mentioned to you before, but the job that this show does, I think, in terms of providing free speech, as much free speech as we're allowed to have, I suppose, is really, really important. And the Kanye West show, I think, was a great moment in journalism because rather than following the herd of the mainstream media and boycotting him and calling for him to be shunned, you allowed him an opportunity to defend himself, and he walked away. Whether that was real or not, what we saw as viewers was a debate that was fair, questions that were fair, free speech, and he couldn't handle it, and he left. And that did more to debunk what he was saying than Ari Emanuel in Hollywood organizing boycotts, not just of Hollywood people in his industry, but every industry, thereby mistakenly giving life to the conspiracy theory that Kanye West was spinning. So I thought what you did was great, and I think that's an example for the young upstarts to follow. You don't win by shutting other people down. You win by opening debate, challenging people. And you weren't even,
And especially not Kanye West. The thing with him, the boycotts were actually making people double down on their support of him.
They say that the best way to get rid of a bad idea is to put a spotlight on it so that everyone can see how bad it is. Well, and that's the big problem with censorship online. It's got it backwards. It's trying to hide the bad ideas. So then they're going to percolate, grow, and the pressure will build. But if you let them come out in an environment where they can be communicated about, not just a one-sided, guy on a camera yelling, but like in a round table of people that are listening, man, it changes the world.
The thing about Ye, he's got a lot of people who just follow him and are going to go along with what he says because he's a billionaire, successful musician, cultural icon. If you just shut him down, all you're doing is telling his core fans the only information you can get is from him. You need to have him sit down and just talk about these ideas, because then those people are going to be listening to him say those ideas and go, I don't know if that makes sense. You can still like Ye and be like, I don't know if what he said made sense. But if he's never challenged because you refuse to challenge him, well, then he's going to win.
And we did a show over the weekend. I don't know if you guys saw it. We did a Timcast IRL, and then Mines on Friday at the Vulcan Gas Company, and then Mines did an event on Saturday. Destiny was on. Stephen Bonnell been on the show a couple times, and he was there challenging, even saying bad ideas. I don't know. Not saying you're saying, but I'd like to review the tape. But Alex Jones came out. Jack Posobiec was there. Libby Emmons was there. We had a fantastic, huge, rotating group of people coming in and out. And it was really nice to let ideas show themselves for what they are, rather than demonizing the people that happen to be the ones that have them at that moment.
Yeah.
I digress. Well, check out the video if you haven't seen it. It's on Steven's Rumble channel.
So we see that video of that woman being choke slammed, and it's got, I think, like 12 or 13 million views. So clearly it matters to people and it's being shared like crazy. But where's the New York Times headlines?
How can we? I think it's because the video's so blurry. I couldn't really tell what was going on when I saw it.
Apparently,
do you really think that it's just the blurriness is why it's not being shared? I really think it's probably ideological from the New York Times.
Yep.
It could be, but what they want is clicks. So if it's a video of a hand going up and you see her eyes and the struggle, that's going to get clicks. And I think that would get a lot of attention.
I think that the video is dramatic enough to get clicks because it has millions. Tim just said it has millions. I think that I really do think that it's ideological.
It's clear what's happening in the video too.
Yeah.
She's there. You can see her there. And then it's just pummeling from the top. I don't know. I think she...
People are arguing that they pulled her away and then beat the other guy. But I'm like, you don't know that. You can say they beat the other guy too, but all I see is she gets choke slammed to the ground, and then they start wailing.
Right. You can literally see it. It's clear.
Well, you can't see her getting hit, but you can't see her going anywhere. Like she doesn't get up and walk away. You just see her get choke slammed, and then they're pounding on someone on the ground.
Yeah, that's the thing is you see her there, and then you don't see her there, and then you see people punching towards the ground. It's like,
but you do see they're beating a guy. They are beating a guy. You can see the guy getting
correct.
beat.
Yes.
Did she survive?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
So there's a question I have about this also which is, were they attacked or targeted because the guy she was with is black as well? Was it an interracial couple that was targeted by the mob?
No.
Or was it a gang
They don't.
thing?
They don't appear.
Personal?
It didn't look like she knew who the guy was, and it looked more so like she just said like, "Hey guys, stop" or something like that,
God.
and then they grab her and
She tried to get in between a mob and a victim. That is a...
Well, she didn't. There wasn't a whole lot of places she could go.
I don't know. Maybe we should try and figure out who this lady was and ask her what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was like,
Let her tell the story.
I just saw a tweet earlier. Someone they are speaking out. I don't have any information about it right now.
The woman is speaking out.
The woman, and the people that were attacked have been identified, and they have been speaking out.
They were on Fox today. I think Fox had the exclusive, and she said they were looking for somewhere to eat.
Oh, they were together.
Yeah.
They were. I don't know if they're dating. They're describing the headline as a couple. I guess that's where I got that idea.
Let me pull that up. What's the headline?
It's mob randomly attacks couple walking in Chicago. They said they were going to kill us. And they say they were randomly attacked.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, no, you're completely correct. It is an interracial. Let's roll with this. We'll cover the story. Mob randomly attacks couple walking in Chicago. They said they were going to kill us. So it quite literally is an interracial couple apparently minding their own business when they were violently attacked by a mob. They say they were randomly attacked walking in downtown Chicago amid the teen takeover. Ashley and DJ said on Tuesday they had been looking for a spot to get food Saturday night when they found themselves trying to navigate a large crowd. People in the crowd pushed the couple, and when DJ stood up to them, fighting broke out. As soon as they pushed me, I told DJ, hey, I said, they just shoved me, and he asked them, he was like, yo, don't shove her. Who shoved her? And as soon as he said that, everything went crazy. They said they were going to kill us. The mob pushed Ashley to the ground and immediately turned on DJ to beat him. They robbed the couple, stealing their shoes, phones, and a pair of glasses, an Apple Watch, and a hat. Video of the attack during the violent teen takeover of the city went viral. Oh, okay. So it was a mob of young black teenagers mercilessly beating an interracial couple.
What is this teen takeover thing?
It can like 4 consecutive nights of large groups of teenagers in Chicago just rampaging through the city, setting fires and smashing windows and attacking people. I think they tried breaking into the Art Institute and got shot.
Yeah.
A couple kids got shot.
Well, I don't know about getting shot, but they were trying to break into the Art Institute, and there were shots fired.
A couple kids did get shot.
Yeah.
Okay. 2 of them. And I thought it was because they were trying to break it. I'm not sure.
Well, you don't want teenagers controlling your society. I'll tell you that.
Well,
Thanks, Ian.
Yeah.
This is perhaps a racially motivated attack. It's not been described that way, but
it definitely is.
So to go to your point about the double standard, we don't know what the motivations were in Kansas City, but there's an assumption it had to be racial. We have pretty good evidence it might have been racial in Chicago, but we don't talk about that.
Well, it's clearly.
We can talk about it, but it's okay.
Right.
Yeah, it was clearly a racist mob attacking this interracial couple because,
You can talk about it, but just don't talk about it too much because then you're a racist, and it's okay.
The thing that offended me the most about what the mayor-elect said and others said was that these kids had no other choice for entertainment on a weekend because they come from deprived backgrounds and they are impoverished or whatever, which is totally
no opportunities.
No opportunities, right, for recreation. I guess the parks were closed or something. I mean, it's Chicago has so much to do, and these kids have phones and they have cars, and maybe they have some other frustrations and challenges, but it's awful to hear it excused like that.
It is exhausting to hear such obvious bullshit shoved down your throat all the time. To hear comments like that, it is just, I can't describe it as anything other than just exhausting. They don't have anything to do, so they have to ransack the city. Give me a goddamn break.
The likelihood that these people voted for this is like 99%.
Yeah.
This is not a young conservative couple. Sorry. They probably either don't vote or vote Democrat. So I just we don't want violent mobs to break out, but I'm torn, right? Like if you voted for the government to, I don't know, give you a free car, and then the government gave you a free car, I'd be like, oh, wow, look at that. You voted and got a car. Like, who's paying for it? I have questions about where it's coming from. If you voted for the government to take your paycheck from you, and then they did, I'd be like, well, congratulations. Like, you asked them to do it and they did. It's like if I ask a guy to take the garbage out and he does it, why would I be upset about it?
I don't like the metaphor of I voted for them and they're perpetuating the violence, so I'm responsible because you voted for Obama. I voted for Obama.
And then I realized it was a mistake, and then I didn't vote for him again.
With your argument, they'd be like, well, it's because of you that 2008 to 12 happened.
Yeah.
And you're responsible.
That's a fact. It is.
You killed those kids. That's what they said.
My support for Barack Obama and what pissed me off and made me so extremely angry with Democrats was that, yes, I gave Obama the support he needed to fucking murder children.
But you didn't.
And that pisses me off.
Well,
yes, I did.
Technically, yeah.
Yes, I did.
But you didn't do that with that intention.
Of course not. No. It doesn't matter. If I give someone a brick and then they say, hey, give me that brick, I say, okay, and then they start hitting someone, then I'm going to be like, yo, I shouldn't have given them that brick.
You gave them the authority. You gave me the authority, but any president would have had that authority.
That's the reason that I feel terrible about voting for Bush. Because of the war in Iraq, that's why people change their votes. They're they vote for someone because they're hoping for something. The person they voted for gives them a pile of shit because that's what they do. And then people are like, well, I don't want to vote for them anymore. That's just the normal thing that that's why people are so sick of the government.
And after that, I didn't vote in 2012 or 2016 because I was like, I don't want to be responsible for what these cocksuckers do. And then Donald Trump did a bunch of really great things with the economy and really great things with foreign policy to the point where I said, this guy needs another term. I mean, the foreign policy stuff was so good that I was finally like, okay, this guy actually did these things.
He also set up a clandestine drone network where he gave his generals authority to bomb whoever they want in secret.
That's right. But I look at what he did as he was working more to pull the U.S. out of what other people started. And I can certainly recognize with that comes the collateral damage that George W. Bush created. I don't even necessarily want to blame Barack Obama for starting the wars that George W. Bush started.
I'm with you there.
But he did sign off on these things. Donald Trump did as well, and I think he should be held responsible. However, the reason I liked what Donald Trump was doing was that he was actively pulling it all back.
Can I ask you something about the foreign policy issues? Because you were there documenting the Occupy Wall Street movement. The anti-war movement was a big part of the motivation for Obama's victory in 2008. Whether he said so explicitly or not, people had the idea this guy was going to get us out of Bush's wars and that kind of thing. Along comes Donald Trump, doesn't go to war, 4 years of peace, Putin doesn't invade anybody, and
Abraham Accords,
and the
North
left
Korean negotiations.
Nobody gives him. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody. There's Glenn Greenwald. There's a few
crushing
other people.
ISIS.
There are a few other people who give him credit, but the left, for whom this was the issue, or so I thought, decided that they had to get rid of Trump, and now we've got Biden risking on every front.
Yeah, pro-war as they come.
So, I mean, what happens to the anti-war movement? Where is the left with this? Did they just forget about it? Do people mumble and walk away? What happens?
I feel I could be part of that
faking
movement.
it.
I'm part of that movement. I feel like it is unstoppable, that the military-industrial complex controls our country, and that we're just in a military autocracy. And stop, full stop. I don't know what else to do.
I used to dismiss that view, but when I see, just observing the FBI interference and the intel leaks and the Russia collusion plot and how there was the Hunter Biden Russian disinformation letter and this collusion between elements of our intelligence community and the Democratic Party, I can't dismiss that anymore. I feel like, well, we have this democracy, but it's as much as they allow us to have. And you can't elect the wrong candidate. Otherwise, as Chuck Schumer warned, they will get at you 100 different ways and just pull it out from under you, which is what they did. But I mean, but how do you look at that? If you're on the left, how do you look at that and say, wait a minute, I don't like Trump, and I can even think he's a racist, but I can't go along with what they're doing to our country.
The left doesn't have principles. There is no moral framework that exists among the left. In fact, I think what makes the left distinct is a clear lack of a moral framework. That's it.
But I have friends and relatives who are leftists, and they believe these things with good intentions. They believe they have a moral framework. I can't say to them, well, you disagree with me because you have no morals.
No, but they don't. Right? So someone's arguments are different from what they actually do. So, like, they have no legitimate reason for supporting war with Ukraine. None. There's no moral basis for that.
Well, it's the fear that he's going to go from country to country to country, and this is the first one, like Hitler went into Poland.
But there's no... Unless you outright say, like, I think the United States should take over the world, should be actively, et cetera, empire, nation building, whatever, you can't be on the left opposing George W. Bush, opposing expansion of war, and then be supporting Ukraine. That proves you have no moral framework other than there is no truth but power.
Lately, I've been like, I've stopped taking the view of, hey, stop doing the war, quit that. I no longer do that anymore. Now I'm like, how can we redivert resources so that the military-industrial complex can remain super profitable, and we can ally with Russia and make more money for everybody? Like, there's got to be a new, not just stop and don't. That won't work anymore. It's moving. So
I'm sorry, I lost what I was saying because I was listening to Ian. Yeah, so.
Well, you know what? Just sorry. I have a different. I'm not anti-war. I'm
my point. Yeah. Real quick, I wanted to see hear what you had to say. My point was, the left has no moral framework because they say we oppose George W. Bush.
Yeah, I feel like I understand what you're saying. I feel like the reason that I think that the left is okay with global government because the left is the left is where communism comes from, and you don't get real communism unless you have like global communism. So I don't think that the left isn't okay with that kind of stuff, and I do think that the left is okay with expansive governments and stuff like that because that's how you end up with a global government.
Do you think the average?
But I don't think that it makes. I understand what you're saying when you say that it doesn't make sense for this particular war in general.
Do you think the average Democrat voter supports communism?
No, I think the average Democrat voter is the default leftist,
which shows there's no moral framework among the left. You can say that some elements of the left are communist.
Yeah,
but when the majority of their voter base doesn't know or care or pay attention, it's just no moral framework.
That's the default. That's the default.
The difference between leftists and Democrats is that you can vote for the Democratic candidate and be completely politically ignorant. Then you're not a leftist. But if you're politically active and you're into that kind of thing, you become on the left. It's the activation of political ideology that puts you in a right or left concept. Whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you might just be completely apolitical.
Andrew Breitbart called it default liberal, I believe. Yeah. That was the saying.
That's what I think.
They follow the corporate press.
I think Breitbart was totally on it right with that. The Democrats are the party of the nice voter. So yeah,
we definitely got to go super chats. We went a little long, so if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends if you do like it, and head over to timcast.com. Click the join us button to become a member. We're gonna have a members only uncensored show coming up for you at about 10 p.m. And if you are a member for at least 6 months or sign up for $25, you can submit questions and potentially be one of our callers. They call into the show and talk to us on the show. Everybody can hear you. You get to be on the show with us. Let's read your super chats. All right. Fitzberg says, hey, Joel, what are your thoughts on graphene?
I don't even know what it is. That's my thought.
Oh boy.
I've got some right here. It's carbon.
It's hexagonally latticed carbon that can be used as a metamaterial?
Yeah, it's this one atom layer thick of carbon, like in a honeycomb strand, and it's
superconductor, super strong.
Yeah, it's capacitive like a battery. You can make touchscreen wallpaper out of it. I have clothing that's made out of it. It's made from pure carbon, so you can get it from carbon dioxide.
While we're here, I'll just say this: they've new batteries they've been putting together, lithium ion. They've been actually creating a graphene network in it to create a graphene composite battery. They charge something like 20 to 30 times faster. So there you go. Let's read some more super chats.
In favor, then I think I'd give it a thumbs up.
Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, you did it. You're big time. Elon subscribes to you now. Hell's bells. But, sir, please don't forget this one important thing. Luke beat you to it. Well, he beat me. I don't know. Elon can follow whoever he wants.
Here's the graphene, Joel, by the way.
I did a video about Elon and the CBC, and you can see it says Elon subscribes to you on my Twitter account.
He responded to Luke earlier today.
Oh, about what?
They're cute.
Luke
posted a video of like this supermarket that had been ransacked, and Elon was like, looks like Fallout, the game.
Well, I'll just say it. I'm like, he follows me. I hit him up, and I was like, I'd really love to do a Twitter 2.0 conversation. Like I asked Joe the same thing. Look, in terms of guys on the totem pole, I'm at the bottom here. It's Joe Rogan, it's Elon Musk.
Let's start off on a Twitter space.
But I mean, that's the opportunity to do a Twitter space.
Actually, Mario Knopfel, I think is his name. Yeah. He does Twitter spaces, and he's done them with Elon. Maybe he could get you.
Yeah, but I'm like, look, we did Joe, myself, Jack, and Vidya did that whole Twitter conversation, and doing the same conversation but with the new boss, I think would be really, really great. But it's up to them.
Yeah, host a Twitter talk to Elon, set up a host where you host it and he'll come in.
Maybe. I mean, we've got the iPhone set up here because we're actually thinking of launching some kind of space thing for IRL, figuring it out. But, we'll see. All right, let's see what we got. What do we got? Senor Poodle says, please talk about that woman who was attacked during the recent Chicago riots. That video is beyond enraging. We did. We talked about it. Hunter Killer says, I think the left is pushing the KC shooting to A, push to get rid of stand your ground laws, and B, distract from events like this past weekend in Chicago. I completely agree.
Yeah, and ask questions like, should an 84-year-old man have a gun?
Yes, because he's the one who actually needs it. And it's another issue of when we're living in dense populated areas, these things will happen. And you don't want to live here. I mean, look, man, I said this earlier. If in the middle of the night, it's like it was after 10 p.m. this happened. So if it's like, maybe not the middle of the night, but it's 11 p.m., we've got armed guards here. If someone walked up to the house that was not on our like expected list and known list, and they walked past our perimeter and tried entering the house, I don't think they would get shot, but you better believe they'd probably have a gun pointed in their face and they'd be instructed to back away, get on the ground. Like, we've been swatted 15 times. We have death threats. Now, the difference is this is not some like simple private residence. It's a big office with a bunch of people who are working here. So it's a bit different. But yeah, if someone randomly showed up and tried entering the house, would not go well for them. At the very least, they might get detained and hurt in the process. And I advise people stay away. As for this old man, a stranger went to his house and tried opening the door, and he panicked.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets me. He tried to open the door. Even if you're picking up your little brothers or whatever it was, his cousins, why would you open the door? Like, for what reason?
For real. And this is an important point, too. There's no argument for that. None. No. You're given an address. You clearly don't know what the building looks like. Why would you try to walk into the front door without knocking first?
Exactly.
I mean, I agree 100%, and it's just like the kid made a boneheaded decision. Because I imagine the kid's not like looking to like he's going there to help find his brothers and sisters or whatever. So it's not like the kid's trying to hurt someone or trying to break in or whatever. It's just the kid was like, oh, and he made a bonehead. It sounds like he made a boneheaded decision and tried to go in to get his brother, and it sucks. But I don't imagine that the guy was just like, oh, here's my chance.
No, it was 11 o'clock. I was picturing it the day before.
I got to read this backhanded compliment of Phil. Joseph Ramos says, wanted to tell Phil Labonte that as a hardcore dude, I'm glad that I'm not the only non-leftist in heavy music culture. Sorry for writing you guys off as butt rock after your second album.
Second album? That I would be surprised. But I mean, that's no hate. Just take a listen to our stuff. I don't mind at all.
What's butt rock?
Butt rock is
Nickelback.
like, yeah,
Because it's like poopy.
No, well,
it's just it's a meant to insult.
Yeah.
Like generic rock bands like Nickelback.
I like Nickelback.
I love
Nickelback's Devil Went Down to Georgia is amazing.
I
don't play this stupid like you better fit in by claiming to hate the things we hate stuff. It's so stupid.
What's that? Better Off Yet? Is that the name of their song?
There's Better Off Dead. Their new song is a song called San Quentin. It's awesome. They're just awesome.
I'm not a big fan.
It's so funny that they got that reputation because they had long hair. They were like just so like exactly what you would think of in that scene at that time.
They're awesome.
Like Creed, like you really couldn't tell them apart if you weren't part of that scene.
It's the crazy thing. I've never been a big fan or anything like that. But like the idea that the left one day decided they hated Nickelback and then everyone had to hate them, I'm just like,
I think they got overplayed. It was similar with Hootie and the Blowfish, but they didn't get it like Nickelback.
No, it started with a protest of Rahm Emanuel, and someone held up a sign saying Rahm Emanuel likes Nickelback, and that set the tone. Nickelback was bad, and the left now said, if you like Nickelback, you're bad. And my attitude is just kind of like, I don't know. They got that one good song. It was a hit like for 6 weeks or something. Devil Went Down to Georgia, legit good song. The rest of the stuff I just don't listen to. I don't know. I got no issue with them. There's a lot of bands I don't listen to. I don't smack talk them. Why would I? That's stupid.
Yeah. Lift musicians up. Now's the time.
I like Soundgarden. Recently, I've been listening to them a lot. All those old classics. 30-year-old songs.
Today. I almost hit the highest note in the song, and people are here in the house that can verify that.
They can, and
we'll get you up there.
They know you're working on it.
I'll give you some workouts. We'll get you up there.
All right. Let's see where we are at. T-Rex Pet Shop says, big corporations are realizing the consequence of joining the culture war, and none come out unharmed. We have even faced backlash for being anti-woke. We will not be moved. Stop supporting woke pet stores. Tim, we still haven't been paid with our money. Ha ha ha. Oh, we gotta. I don't know what the next thing is. We gotta order for Bocus. So I don't know.
Thing? What do you mean thing?
Well, from T-Rex, we needed food.
Oh.
Well, he's on that very special diet, so I don't know.
Okay.
He still seems like he's sick, but
no, he's gained weight. He's
like
gained 0.3 pounds or something. He looks great. Have you seen him in the last?
I went and said what's up to him earlier. He was screaming.
Yeah. I mean, relative to where he was at, he looks phenomenal. But he's bored as hell, and he's stuck in the room.
Like you think about it, like 3-4 months ago, everyone was like, "Bocus is done. He's gone."
Oh, dude!
It's
in December or whatever, we were told he had 2 weeks, and when he came back to us, he couldn't stand up. He tried to go in the litter box, and he fell, and then just crapped on the floor. And that's why I made that video where I was like, "This is it." Like he got to the point where he couldn't stand up. He would try and stand, and then he would just like slump to the ground. Yep. We got him the new diet food. We got him the hydration injections, and he got a hormone treatment that stimulated red blood cell production, and he started getting better. And then Ian got him the experimental stem cell therapy.
Oh, thank you.
That's amazing.
Hopewell Medical Hospital, Animal Hospital in New York. Man, in Hopewell, New York. Like, it was nice to take a week away in Austin because I got to see Bucko before we left and after. So, like, if you see everybody every day, you don't notice the changes. But a full week of away, he got puffier. Like, his fur is a little puffier. He looks a little bigger, a little fat hanging off his sides. I like it.
Yeah, I was hearing him talking in the main room.
He wants out.
Yeah. All right. Phil Dude Bro says, what you guys don't realize, Bud Light has a whole line of hard seltzers with girly flavors, and they want to outlaw menthol cigarettes. Okay. Dorktanian says, it's a Benjamin Crump story, Tim. The same lawyer activist who is behind a multitude of the BLM bull. That's right.
Is Ben Crump the lawyer?
Yes, he is.
Oh, God, what a garbage man.
Yep.
He's the worst.
It's just, when I first heard the story, I was like, why is this news? I mean, like, it's a tragic story, but this thing happens all the time. I'm sure there's probably 50 stories just like it right now. And notice how the media immediately wants it to be about race.
They wanted it. They wanted it badly. Oh, the other thing was at the White House briefing today, reporters were asking the press secretary for a statement about what this says about America. So we are all to be judged by this one incident, which could turn out to be, a boneheaded move by the kid or a terrible mistake or worse by the homeowner, but somehow it's all of our fault. Like this says something about us collectively. That's not the politicians saying that. Those are the so-called journalists.
We have one from Gabriel Lopez. He says, yes, women will vote for their own demise. As men, it's our job to protect them, even from themselves. The 19th was a giant anti-woman move. They should not be diving in the pile of garbage that is politics. Look at the results. I completely disagree. I think women absolutely should have the right to vote. I think individuals matter most. But I will say of the 19th, I do take issue with it. The 19th Amendment says you cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. You know what that means? It means trans people can have the right to vote rescinded because it's not protected under the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment says sex, not gender. I think we should just repeal the 19th, eliminate all that language, and we don't need an amendment telling people who's allowed to vote, right?
Right.
I mean, in all seriousness, I don't understand why we need an amendment to be like an individual has the right to vote.
You want an amendment that says you're not able to stop from voting. Like you shouldn't be able to stop people from voting. That's basically what the Constitution should show.
I would like to see an amendment I would like to see a requirement for citizens.
I'm into this.
I would like to see that.
A citizenship requirement?
Vivek Ramaswamy went hard on that
and
too.
We talked about service. Yeah. I think his answer was, simply put, sign up for the selective service and you get your voter ID card.
I'm pretty much okay with that. I mean, unless we could figure out a way to have no one vote, then,
Yeah, no voting for anybody.
Nobody.
Just Donald Trump becomes president and that's it. And then we make him a cyborg and then upload his brain to an AI. And then from now on you have Cyber Trump.
And we tell them if they mess up, we're going to pull the plug.
Cybertrump versus Mecha Biden would be cool.
Cybertrump versus Cybertruck.
Yeah, sure.
Who would win?
Seven Cruz says, Tim, I'm one of those filthy beer drinkers. I would like to thank you for letting me know about Modelo being owned by Bud Light. I would also further thank you for introducing me to Yuengling.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I misspoke. I said I thought Yuengling may have been partially owned by Anheuser. It is not. It's actually a traditionally owned family business that has been passed down from generation to generation for like 200 years.
Yeah.
Richard
literally
Yuengling Jr.
200 years. And not to mention, I actually think Yuengling tastes really good. And I like the beers that I like to drink. Blue Moon I like, Modelo I like, and Yuengling I like.
Dude, the Modelo thing sucks so much.
I know.
It's the
Why? What happened?
Because Modelo's owned half of it. I believe half of it is owned by Anheuser-Busch, by InBev or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so it's a bummer. But I don't drink beer anyway, so I'm not going to be drinking any of it. But if I had to choose a beer, it'd be a Yuengling.
Nice.
That's just me. I mean, it's really good.
America's oldest brewery.
It's also made in Philly, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
it's like
Pottsville, Pennsylvania.
Real traditional American. They made a commercial. They made an ad that's a picture of a Yuengling with the American flag.
Yeah, I saw it.
So,
yeah.
I'll take it.
That's good.
But like, I people have mentioned that, I could be wrong about this. I don't know. There was pictures of a pride flag with Yuengling and chorus and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know or care if that's true because I got no problem with it. Mm-hmm. I don't care.
Right.
What I care about is like specifically Dylan Mulvaney being a really, really evil person. All right, let's see what we got. We got some more news. Oh, we also do have really big news that we're going to have on the members only show that, for obvious reasons, not going to be on the main show. The FDA announced that I'm going to be careful with the language here. A major announcement was made on whether or not you can get the mRNA vaccines.
Oh, so, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and because the language is extremely confusing, and they put out like 6 tweets, some that contradict each other. I'm going to be careful about the language I use on YouTube because YouTube's full of crap. But they basically made an announcement about certain vaccines you are no longer allowed to get. And I wonder if this coincides with the end of the national COVID emergency, meaning emergency use authorizations are officially out the window. You can't have an EUA on something if there's no emergency, I guess. But we'll talk about that in the members only portion. So make sure you go to timcast.com, click join us. Let's read some more super chats. North Georgia Infantry says April is Confederate History Month. Is that true? Is that true?
Let's find out.
I don't know.
I mean, Civil War history is absolutely fascinating. I think it's...
Yeah, I love that you were talking about Harper's Ferry earlier. Did you see the battery, the old weapons hold? I think it's called a battery, but it's just leveled. All there is just like concrete base now. It was completely leveled to the ground by the Union soldiers when they came in.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, what also...
I think, or maybe it was the
is
South.
interesting about the town is there is a bed and breakfast you can actually stay at that used to be Stonewall Jackson's headquarters when the Confederates took over the town. They haven't erased any of that history. It's just layer upon layer upon layer.
It was the Armory. That's what it was. The
Yeah,
Armory.
There's a
Rubble.
really awesome little coffee shop in Harper's Ferry that I love going to. I'm going to shout them out. Let me look up.
You go
what
up
it
the
is.
hill to that church that's like blown out, and that's like, I guess there was like a last stand, or there's like stands up there where dudes would just like hold out on the top of the hill.
There were so many battles there. It was taken over 5 times, I think. They have this by different armies within the Civil War. That went back and forth. And you got John Brown, of course, and the NAACP being there, and just so many different things. You could learn so much about American history from one town. And again, it just shows you the value of preserving these things and not rewriting history because parts of it offend you or parts of it are difficult. I mean, John Brown was difficult for his age. He was an abolitionist who took up arms, arguably pushed the United States towards civil war, later celebrated as more of a hero. But how many different perspectives were there about that guy at his time? You can't cancel any of that stuff and still learn from it.
Battlegrounds, shout out.
Oh, the coffee shop?
Yeah, Battlegrounds Coffee
Because
Shop.
there are so
Harper's
many
Ferry.
battlegrounds on that ridge. Strategically, massively important location.
Good name
terrain.
for a coffee shop too.
Yep.
Yeah, but they do a really, really awesome BLT, or it's not a BLT. It's like bacon, lettuce, tomato, and egg.
Dude, if you guys have not been to Harper's Ferry, you have got to visit Harper's Ferry. I've never seen any city like it before. It is incredible. It is
amazing.
very,
And
there's
very
so many
awesome.
cool businesses in that town, like little shops
big-
and restaurants.
You see on the mountain, they've carved an advertisement you were
I've
mentioning
never
earlier.
seen anything like that. That is wild. And they're like, well, we're not going to do that again because it's there forever. Like, that's some good placement.
All right, let's read some more super chats. What do we got here? William Jones says, Tim, look at Tech 9 song Drama, help you understand KC. P.S. Tech a rapper from KCMO. Interesting. All right. Free Men Die Free says, Nickelback is the GOP of music. Popular when it shouldn't be. Discord is lit right now, by the way. Oh, very cool. Yeah, become a member. Go to timcast.com, click join us, get access to our Discord server, hang out with like-minded individuals. And got some news from the state on the poker club. Apparently, they only allow a certain amount of gaming licenses. So we likely would not be able to have a poker club, and they're very strict on home poker games, so you can't even do it Texas style. But I'm actually wondering if that's constitutional. I'm gonna get a little esoteric with you guys because I really want to say this. Poker is, for those that play, it's extremely popular. Obviously, it's getting more and more popular by the minute. The World Series of Poker had like 11,000 entrants, so it's really starting to, in my view, pick up. Obviously, I got into it in the past several months watching these videos online, but mostly because I've always played it. I've always played Magic the Gathering. What I don't understand is it's a game where you choose your odds, you choose your probability, you can choose to play or not to play. It's a skill game. There is chance involved. But Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all these card games are skill and chance games. Why is it that in West Virginia, in Maryland, in Pennsylvania, in every single state, I can take a deck of cards, I can then pay money to a facility to enter me into a contest where I cross my fingers that I'm going to get a good draw of my cards and get the right cards that I need to win. And then if I do win, I get paid cash for it. Is that not gambling? Magic the Gathering is a game of partial chance. It's a skill game for sure. But if everyone's playing the Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, you name your card game. In fact, I think poker is actually more reasonably fair because there's no barrier for entry.
Yeah, you're always using the same deck.
Exactly. In Magic the Gathering, which is the most popular physical card game, there are tournaments where people can make tens of thousands of dollars. You pay $500 to enter a tournament, you play against people, cross your fingers, you draw a good card because it's random chance.
And it's even kind of worse because if someone else has a lot of money and they've bought the best cards, you have less of a chance of winning.
Exactly. Buying a good deck in Magic requires you to be wealthy, which is just a disadvantage. So it's worse than poker. Poker is the same deck, the same odds, everyone's playing the same game, and if you got the skill, you can figure out what the person's trying to do and if you can win or not. It's skill based with chance in the side. Magic the Gathering has so many layers, but I'm not trying to rag on Magic. I like Magic. My question is, why is one legal and one not legal when they're both effectively the exact same thing? And you can make the argument that you're not wagering cash in between each turn, but poker tournaments are still illegal.
Yeah, in a tournament, you would pay money up front, and then you just wager chips, which represent, I guess, the cash, but they don't because
Points.
Yeah,
But it doesn't matter. Still illegal. Can't do it. So I think there's a
gotta get the
lawsuit.
governor in.
I think there's a lawsuit brewing in that it's an unconstitutional move to single out one card game and not others. So they either have to make Yu-Gi-Oh illegal or make poker legal. I'm not talking about playing blackjack. I don't want to play blackjack or these table games. I'm talking about friends playing against friends. So I was talking with Allison earlier, and I'm like, why don't we just do this? We'll make a card game called Wizards and Warriors, where there's 4 elements. There's water, fire, earth, and wind.
And there's 14 creatures that fight.
No. There's elemental power. So you have power levels 1 through 9.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you have
power levels Jack, Queen, King, and Ace as well.
Absolutely,
I mean,
that's
I would
right.
call it something else. I mean, sorry.
The aces of fire,
Yes.
the kings of fire.
We can call them whatever.
And then what you're doing is you're trying to cast a spell against your opponent, and
you need
like
3 of a kind. You need 2 pair.
Exactly.
Basically, it's poker rules, but we'll just make it.
We'll claim we're playing D&D or something.
I mean,
we have to tweak a little bit of the rule. I
you
think.
can really just make them make the cards have like pictures instead of the numbers and stuff on them.
But it's like, oh, I've got level 5 fire, and I've got 3 level 5 fires. So they've synchronized, giving me a triple fire blast. That defeats your double fire blast. I take all of the money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you just add a weird mystical element to it, all of a sudden it's a trading
Kids
card game.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's so dumb. All right. Nathan C says Yingling is PA coal miners beer. My World War II vet grandpa used to drink it. He was a master carpenter, and I think he did a bit of mining when younger. True grit. Drinking some now on my birthday. Cheers. Happy birthday, Nathan.
Man.
Happy birthday.
Rip Juice says, please bring Bocus on so we can see him healthier.
I could do that.
You want to grab him for the members only?
I will.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member. We're going to have a members only, uncensored show in about 10 minutes. And if you sign up at the $25 level or you're a member for at least 6 months, you can submit questions and even call into the show and join us. So smash that like button, as I mentioned. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL, basically everywhere. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow me personally at Timcast everywhere. Joel, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, I've got a new book out. It's the biography of my mother-in-law who passed away a year ago, Rhoda. And she was an anti-apartheid activist, opposed racism in South Africa, was appointed to the new government by Nelson Mandela, and then resigned in protest over that government's failures, became one of the most vociferous critics of that government. And from starting out as a black feminist, she became a Trump supporter. So a very interesting political arc and a fantastic person. We lost her a year ago, but she left a legacy, and you can read about it in the book.
You know, Serge is from South Africa.
Where are you from, Serge?
Do you mean like where my parents are from?
Yeah.
My father's from a town called Belfast, which is north of Johannesburg, maybe like an hour and a half. And then my mom is from Pretoria.
Okay, so yeah, the northern part.
Yes.
Yeah, my wife was born and raised in Cape Town. I was born in Johannesburg, but grew up in Chicago. So,
Wow.
okay.
Right on. People are saying don't put Bocus behind a paywall. If you want to see Bocus, you got to pay. Phil, you want to shout anything out?
I am Phil That Remains on Twitter. I am Phil That Remains official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains on all of the Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff.
I'm Ian Crossland. Follow me at iancrossland.net. And also, I want to shout you out, Joel, your Twitter anyway, Joel Pollak, Joel Pollak. People can follow you there. Thanks for coming. It was really enjoyable, actually. And I feel like in the amount of time we had, we just kind of got started and looking into your brain. I really love it. So thank you for coming.
I'd love to talk about, if we can, in the members only. Let's talk about Occupy Wall Street and Andrew Breitbart and
Absolutely.
how we got here.
Awesome. We also have Serge Duprea.
Yes, I'm on mute there. Hi, guys. Serge.com on Twitter. That's all.
We will see all of you over at timcast.com. It'll be up on the front page in about 8 minutes. Thanks for hanging out.